Welcome to Black Women Making Money. We are the home of the upwardly mobile Black woman. For exclusive content and invitations to our Inner Circle Zoom meetings, which happen on a monthly basis, you can sign up for free for our email newsletter at bwmakingmoney.com. That's bwmakingmoney.com. Hello, ladies. Happy New Year. This is Cherie of Black Women Making Money. We are the home of the upwardly mobile Black woman. I hope everybody is doing well today. I want to thank all of my ladies for being here. Uh, this is our annual year in review, and my special guest is the second time we're doing this, and she has been here for both years, 2022 and 2023. So I am super excited to have the one, the only Mocha Mommy in the building. Hello, Mocha Mommy.
Hi, everybody.
Where you been, Mocha Mommy? Where you been? We've missed you on these YouTube streets.
Oh, had to take a little social media break.
Uh-huh.
It's really good for your mental health.
It
And
is.
also, there are other parts of social media that definitely could use a lot of your talent. So if you ladies are really good at editing, if you're good at making other videos, if you have an interest in crafts, or trust me, there are other parts of social media you can reach out to, and that can be a little new side hustle. I know you guys are always looking for lucrative side hustles over here.
That is true. So the more that I like get into not just YouTube, but just like seeing what other people are looking at and things like that, there are whole other sections of YouTube with regards to crafting, like you're saying, farming, gardening, um, all sorts of business stuff, etc. And then you can just really go down these rabbit holes with regards to what's out there. So, but we're so glad to have you here today with us to kind of yip yap about the year. So, um, what was it a good year for you? 2023?
It was a good year, but
Good.
it was some ups and some downs.
Hmm.
Um, and dealing with being more of an empty nester, I thought that was more of a challenge than I thought it would be.
Interesting, interesting. Yeah. So I guess because your children are so much a part of your life and they consume your life for so long that once that's over, yeah, there definitely is an adjustment. Definitely. So, well, I had a good year. It was a foundational year. It was a skill building year. I'm grateful that I joined the mortgage industry when the rates were slightly higher and there was less happening. Um, so that way I could really learn the craft, really learn the
Wow.
business. But one of the things that's the Fed has said is that next year they think they're going to lower rates 3 times next year. So, uh,
Wow.
yeah, so like 40%, I think, of the industry left the industry. However, so there's going to be a bigger piece of the pie for the people who stayed. Um, but you will be able to do more volume, get more business, things like that, if you took this year and actually worked on your craft and worked on your skills within real estate. So it should be pretty interesting. Should definitely be pretty interesting. So we've got more and more people coming in. I want to say hello to the beautiful Rana Love. Happy New Year's to you. Jade is in the building. Alonzo is saying salute, and True Mystique is in the building saying she is cloud watching for today. Hello to
Love her
everybody.
content.
Yes, yeah. And her digital art as well. It's beautiful. So, okay, without further ado, let us start with y'all know I got my little presentation thing, and it's more so I don't forget anything. So let's kind of talk about the top stories of 2023. These were not necessarily the top stories, period, overall, but these were, in my opinion, the top stories that were impactful for upwardly mobile Black women for various reasons. Some of the stories are happy, some of them are sad, some of them are messy, some of them are very serious. But all of them are relevant to us. Some of them have to do with the Black community. Some of them don't have to do with the Black community at all. So we're going to have a little bit of everything in here, a lot of fun. I want you ladies to, get in the conversation with us as well. Let us know what you remember, things like that, as we go through today. So I always start off with deaths. People who have left us last year. The Friends star, Matthew Perry,
Matthew
of
Perry, yeah.
course. If anybody who was a child of the 90s, I never watched Friends. I was obviously a living single. Shouldn't say obviously. I was a living single fan.
Agree. I did
Um,
not really think that show was funny.
but I didn't think it was that funny, the two episodes I watched. However, Friends was huge. I mean, it was a big deal. It was as big as Seinfeld with regards to its impact on pop culture. So, oh, Computer and Coin is here. I haven't seen you in so long. Hello, Computer and Coin. Okay, Lisa Marie Presley. I have to admit, she didn't look too good the last years of her life. I, you know, she had a hard life for somebody who was born into privilege. Charlie Munger passed, of
Yeah.
course. He was 99 years old.
Mhm.
He lived a very good life to the very end. One of the top investors in the world. To the bottom left hand side is Harry Belafonte. That's a younger picture of him, but he passed. Richard Roundtree passed. Jerry Springer, Jerry, the original
Trash
trash
TV.
TV, original trash TV was Jerry Springer. Jim Brown, football player, legend. He actually was the one that negotiated the truce. This is what people say between the Crips and the Bloods gangs in Los Angeles. Was Jim Brown. Um, he, but he was legendary. And of course, my number one person, I loved her. The person I wish I had gone to see in concert in the 90s, Tina Turner. I still rock out to her
Oh
music,
yeah.
you know, when I'm working out, just because she's so legendary. Mokomami, was there anybody on this list that really kind of popped out to you, or anybody that's not on this list that you're really thinking about?
Oh gosh. I mean, by far Tina Turner had to be the most impactful one. Like,
Mhm.
I mean, I saw her exhibit in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and I did get a chance to see her Wildest Dreams tour back in the day, and
Mm.
it was unbelievable that she was in her 50s, almost 60s during that tour, and how amazing she looked and the energy she brought to the stage. She is, I mean, if we could all be that gorgeously energetic,
Yes.
throughout our lives, yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And she seemed like a kind person. She definitely, I watched when she was alive, I had watched Sunny Hostin on The View. And Sunny Hostin used to be a district attorney. And
Right.
she said that, and she used to work with abused women. And she said that so many women came to her office and was willing to leave their abusive spouses because they saw Tina Turner's story. So, she she had a major impact on lives beyond her music. Um, so yeah. Farida is in the building saying good afternoon. Good afternoon to you, Farida. And Rana's saying Tina Turner. Yes, she had her last show in Vegas. And you also are talking, Rana, about Harry Belafonte, who, of course, was huge in the 60s. Harry Belafonte was huge with civil rights. We have to be
Absolutely.
honest that part of the reason Dr. King was funded so long was because of people like Harry Belafonte, who was funding him, you know, um, and probably could have risked his career as well. So these people probably have a lot of stories. So that's part of the reason why I don't trash talk. a lot of the civil rights generation. I know that people do it on social media, but I don't, because we don't know what we would have done in those situations.
And he was responsible for the desegregation of a lot of concert venues and clubs.
Yeah, between
Just
him and Ray Charles.
hmm
Ray Charles was huge with that as well. So, and Shar is in the building saying TGIF. Happy New Year, Shar. Happy New Year. And thanks again for letting everybody know if they want exclusive content. It's bwmakingmoney.com. Shar is my cheerleader. Thank you so much. All right, let's see the next thing. Let's start off with some dishonorable mentions. Most of you may have forgotten this, but the Angry Man versus Destiny debate was in January 2023. If you don't remember what that is, don't worry about it. We are not playing it here. But just in case any of you remember what that what that was, Destiny is the guy in the blue hair. He was talking with Angry Man. Angry Man ended up going from women are the problem to black women are the problem and the biggest issue in the community. And Destiny was, going back and forth with them. And it ended up being a whole mess. So it ended up being this 1 versus 3 debate. Put a one in the chat, ladies, if you remember Destiny versus Angry Man debate. The second thing, the Alabama brawl. Um, Craziness happened that day. We're not going to show that, but that did happen in 2023. The third dishonorable mention is Jonathan Majors. Of course, he was found guilty. I hate it when people compare individuals to Emmett Till. I heard that mess. Um, I understood why he was found guilty, because when we look at the charges and we looked at did he do what they accused him of, the answer was yes. So these are the dishonorable mentions that I have. Jade is saying yes, she remembers Angry Man versus Destiny, and unfortunately Drea is here saying yes, she remembers it. Shar remembers it. Ron is saying thank God I don't remember it. um, and Mocha Mama, you saying, oh Lord. What are you saying, oh Lord?
I just feel as if the whole Angry Man debate, the fact that he had to bring two other people to defend him, couldn't back up his sources, and then it just it was so sad
It
that
was sad.
he still couldn't see really the other point. It was sad.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like it when other cultures talk about Black people and Black relationships.
Right, but
Um,
unfortunately he brought it into the
he
debate.
he was brought into it, exactly, and it was just a whole mess. It was something that happened January of last year, and I just so happened to start this list when we had done our last call in 2022. And this was like the first thing on it. And I'm like, it really, like, people talked about it for like a month afterwards. So, but let's move on to the first thing, affirmative action being overturned. This huge story, ripple effect with regards to upwardly mobile Black women, Black people, period, Asians, what do you call it? Hispanics, white people, everybody is going to be affected by affirmative action being overturned. I've spoken at nauseum with regards to where I think this is headed. Um, this happened in the summer of 2023, where the Supreme Court overturned the use of race based admissions for colleges. I said that we're going to start seeing it in K through 12. We're going to start seeing it in the workplace. You all know I've spoken about this ad nauseum. I think that this is a critical point in time for upwardly mobile Black women. What do you think, Mokamami?
Well, I mean, I think there was like a lot of like personal investment in this decision. I feel like affirmative action have always been a mixed blessing.
Mhm.
Like in a way, it will give you an opportunity where there wasn't one, but then there was always the assumption that you were unqualified.
Mhm.
And a lot of times, I know in many of our cases, especially in healthcare, many of us were overqualified. And I had noticed the tension because many of the cases had started here in Texas.
Mhm.
And the tension was really, I saw with clinicals, right? That's where I saw it directly, where you would have these Asian students, stellar grades, incredible, like went above and beyond academically. But by the time they got to the clinicals, that's where you saw who used to be the CNA, who used to work EMS, who used to maybe worked in a nursing home and had the hands-on experience, but maybe
Mhm.
didn't take anatomy and physiology too, maybe didn't take advanced health physics, or maybe didn't have a top 10% GRE score, right? But yet they were getting jobs faster than the ones who had immaculate grades. Because the bottom line is charge nurses, when they need to hire, don't look at your transcripts, but they do observe how you work with patients. And I noticed that that was one of the bigger issues that I had saw, because you would just really see students coming out with immaculate grades, but really, really poor relationships with the other staff. And I think a lot of it had to do with maybe their culture being a little bit less, maybe less talkative, less engaging, maybe a little
Mhm.
bit more reserved in the break room and places like that, where that wasn't the case with people from other cultures. You had a lot of former military, a lot of them were Hispanic. They would be coming out and they would be literally be able to get blood from a stone because they were used to doing it to dehydrated patients in Iraq, or in the military, and they had a large scope of practice. Or you would have a lot of Black women who I would see who would work in nursing homes, who would be LVNs before they ended up getting into a graduate program, and maybe their grades weren't that great, maybe their GRE scores weren't that great, but they were really good with patients.
Mhm.
And and that was a source of tension that I had always seen, um, that perhaps they weren't merit based.
So really, we're talking about soft skills,
Yeah.
and and it's true that a lot of the Asian students lacked soft skills. It's true that they at one point earlier on were not as well rounded because their culture preached education so much. It's like, okay, you studied and then what? What else did you do? You know? And now Rana is saying, and she's right. I noticed there were articles where the parents are crying and panicking about not getting into the universities. Now they're panicking as well the other way. Yes, I've seen those articles as well. At the end of the day, it is important for us to remain at the top 10% of our technical skills and maintain our soft skills and get those multicultural networks and make sure we pull our resources, have your resources so that when you are able to make a move, you can do so. Um, but the whole country is changing back to merit based. And with that, there are going to be opportunities for us. And it may be harder for you to get through some doors as well. One thing I've noticed is, especially with conservative social media, is that they're framing things like, I would have an easier chance as a Black woman of becoming a pilot for a United Airlines program than a white male. And that's really the push of this thing. Um, and I
But
believe
there's
that
a
you still,
nationwide shortage of pilots. So here's the thing. I keep hearing a lot with these white male conservative talking points. Well, I'm less likely to do this, or I'm less likely to be picked for that. Well, did you apply? Like, you know what I mean? Like, did you apply? Like, what are your credentials? Did you apply? And I hear them a lot, but it's always from the ones who are not qualified to do too much.
Mhm. Yeah, and that concerns me as well. Or did you apply? Did you? did you really want it? You know, why do you assume that the Black person was only chosen because they were Black or because they were a woman? My concern, Mokamami, and we've discussed this on this channel. My concern is the pendulum is going to swing so much that we're going to get to a point where people are not going to want to hire us if they don't know us, because they're going to be accused of favoritism towards the Black woman, or you just hired this person for diversity and that's it. That's the reason why I really want my ladies on here to shore up your multicultural networks now. Make sure they know what you can do. This is not the time to be an introvert. You can be an introvert, but this is not the time to be an introvert and be shy and say, I just want to do my job, leave me alone, let me sit at my workstation and do, whatever I was hired to do.
I
You're going to
agree.
lose at the end of the day.
I agree. I always tell these young women, listen, brush up on your gluten-free baking skills, especially like around the Christmas holiday time. So
Hmm.
brush up on those gluten-free baking skills, because if something is gluten-free and pumpkin spice and you bring it into work, you're getting a lot more conversations, you're getting a lot more interactions, and you're building a network that way, because this time of year everybody's doing it.
Yeah, they need to. So, Rana is saying, you told us for months we need soft skills. I have been preaching it and preaching it. And one day someone is going to come in this channel and say, Cherie, because of you preaching about the soft skills and the multicultural networks, I got XYZ, or I was denied XYZ. So I'm just trying to warn all of you. You saying you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. Well, Flash Wave, that is the truth. That is life. But this is why I started this channel, because I wanted to say to, like, every other channel that I saw that was having these conversations were saying, collectively we need to come together, collectively we need to own our own supply chain, collectively we need to do this. And I'm like, but nothing is happening collectively. So I really wanted to focus on individually, what can you do? So yeah, you're saying you're an introvert. um
Yeah.
you're saying we got hired because it's AA. No, AA, we get hired because we're Black. And look, people ultimately are going to have their reasons for believing that you were hired. But if you know somebody, number one, I was listening to, I think it was Diamond Dave, saying that only 30% of the jobs that are out there are even posted on LinkedIn. We're getting to a point
True.
with AI and robotics where the number of jobs that are going to be available are going to go down. So now you don't know anybody and you're clamoring for 30% of the jobs. Whereas I was listening to this podcast earlier today, and this guy is looking for a technical co founder or something like that. And the other gentleman who was interviewing him said, well, how are you going to find that person? You know what he said? I'm just going to call around to my network until I find somebody who knows somebody that they can refer to me. That's not, and this is like a like probably $100 million company that he's building. You're not going to be able to get those opportunities without knowing people.
That's
So,
so true, because I just know that we had just went on a hiring spree at our hospital system, and of most of the listings we hired from within. We didn't
mm-hmm.
we I mean, we had like a legal obligation to like post it, but for the most part it was from people who we knew, and a lot of times before those listings even hit the post, I was calling up like the students at our precept. I was calling up, other people like, hey, this department is about to have an opening, this department, and then all of a sudden before it even hits Indeed, they already have a bunch of resumes. Before it even hits the websites, they have resumes of qualified people in hand.
You just told the ladies so much game. I hope they heard you. Just because something is posted doesn't mean they're going to hire from the outside or they're going to hire someone they don't know. from a resume. You know, there are companies out there that have to post something because of legal reasons, because of, some sort of guidelines within their industry, things like that. So all of the problems and I don't want to call them excuses because they're not excuses, but all of the issues that Black people have with employment. When somebody like me or someone like Mokamami comes and tries to say, "Here's the game. Here's how it's working on the inside," I just want you all to be able to take that information and run with it. That's it. Level Up Single Mom is in the building. Hello, hello. And also Brian's tax, girl. You're going to be busy. It's tax season again. It's tax season again, girl. Good to see you. Dawn Earth is saying, what I'm coming to terms with is depending on the field you work in, remote working is over. I work remote.
Not
So
true. That's not true.
yeah, it depends on your field and it depends on what you're doing. But yeah, I work remote. Um, I don't think. Do you feel comfortable answering this, Mokamami? What position was it for?
It was for clinical positions throughout a hospital system.
Hmm. Yeah. All right, let's move on to the second thing because we got 20 stories to go through. Single women are outpacing single men in home ownership. That was a very interesting um, New York Post article that came out based on a recent analysis by Lending Tree, which said that single women own roughly 10.7 million homes in America, and single men own about 8.1 million homes in America. Obviously, if you're married, the married people own the most homes. But this goes into the whole men are having problems uh, discussion that we had last year, Mokomami. It's filtering into this year. There are a lot of people banging the gong with regards to men and the issues that they are having in society, getting paired up, having kids, having families, things like that. What do you think about this whole thing, Mokomami? Home ownership, single men, single women, etc.
Well, I mean, this is a discussion too, like that I have with my spouse because he is in a leadership position at his job, and a lot of these guys make great money, and they still don't buy houses.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't necessarily think it's a broke man issue as much as it is a male mentorship issue,
Mm.
right? Like I feel as if women are more like we'll talk to each other, and I feel also to our need for security, our need for predictability and certainty drives us into the homeowners market, where there are some men who make good money, but they just don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
They like renting the trendy downtown place that has a dry cleaner in the lobby and the doorman who takes their Uber Eats order for them. I mean, some of them just like that lifestyle. But on the other hand, too, we also have a male mentorship problem with helping them get jobs, helping them get financially set up, where women we're just more likely to have these discussions.
I know for me, I bought my home because my rent went up like $400 over a 3-year period. And I really just wanted the stability of the same bill over time. Like I saw, this was pre COVID. Now the prices are crazy for rent. But this was pre COVID where I was just like, it doesn't make sense for me to continue to rent. Let me buy, especially because I had down payment money at the time. I just said, let me buy. So many people that I know that are wealthy own homes. And like you said, there is something with regards to single women wanting that security that maybe single men, usually men don't purchase homes and purchase items like that until they have a family. So it's interesting. I also think that a lot of single women are happy being single as well. They
And it's
don't.
socially acceptable. It's more socially
Mhm.
acceptable now.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, Level Up Single Mom is saying, absolutely, I see the women trying to ground themselves and be settled, and the men are living like they will go on living forever. That's true. Denise is in the building. Happy New Year, Denise. As one of my friends says, I love owning a home. It stabilizes my bills. It does. It really does. And I've got equity now, so yeah. Samri is in the house as well, saying hello to Mokomami. So, all right, let's move on to the next story of the year. Do you all remember March 2023, the banking crisis? That's right. Over the course of 5 days in March 2023, three small to mid sized US banks failed, triggering a sharp decline in global bank stock prices and swift response by regulators to prevent a potential global contagion. Silicon Valley Bank failed when a bank run was triggered. So people ran to the bank basically after it sold its treasury bond portfolio at a large loss. So basically, Silicon Valley Bank, my understanding is they had like a risk manager that left. And this bank, a lot of people didn't know this bank, but this bank had like, I believe it was Facebook's money in it, like billions of dollars, Etsy's money in it. There were other big um, VC funded companies, other tech companies that had billions of dollars in it. I remember having a live stream when the banking crisis first happened, and I said, capitalism will always protect itself. There's no way that the US government would let this bank fail. But I don't know about any of you. You can put a two in the chat if you remember the banking crisis, and maybe you'll tell us what you were thinking. But um, I know that there were a lot of people panicking. First Republic Bank had lines around the corner with people trying to get their money. There were banks that were buying other banks, taking on bad debt, and then, of course, getting money from the government to take on that bad debt. So, the bank's balance sheets
Right.
were fine.
Hmm.
But yeah, this happened, and one of the things that America has going for it is our financial stability. I don't care what anybody says. The US government is not going to let a banking or a financial crisis happen on its soil. They're not going to do it because all of the other countries around the world, their wealthy people like to invest in the United States because of its financial safety. So, Mokamami, do you remember the banking crisis? What did
I
you think?
do. And I remember how so many small business owners had their money caught up, especially those who use apps like Square or
Hmm.
Clover for their point of sale software, because many of those point of sale software companies go through these banks, even if it's not your particular bank.
Hmm.
So that was a big issue for small business owners. And I also realized how many people were like, how unfair this is unfair, this is unfair. Because I remember when George Bush bailed out banks again in 2008, and then here
Hmm.
it is again. But then yet people were having a hard time paying their own mortgages,
Hmm.
paying their own car payments or credit card bills, and weren't finding relief. Like, how are these banks getting relief, but the relief is not for the consumer? So I remember those discussions going around these particular banks. Like, why is there relief for the bank and not relief for the consumer?
Hmm. Yeah, unfortunately, that's the way that it is.
Hmm.
Um, the Silicon Valley Bank, for example, there were too many powerful people who had their money in this bank. There were too many payrolls that were not going to get paid. They can let one person fail, or one consumer fail, or even individual consumers fail. But these big banks, these small banks, these mid-sized banks, they couldn't do it. They couldn't do it. So somebody in the Treasury Department or some people or committee of people, they did not go home that weekend. This is a weekend thing. I remember that. They didn't go home that weekend, because the stock market would have fallen apart. It would have been a global financial crisis. So, yeah. Um, all right, let's move on to the next story. We didn't talk about it on this channel. This is a recent thing. But there was a black TikToker who said it was better to have white followers than black followers. So I'm going to actually show that. You all can put a 3 in the chat if you remember this young lady saying this. But because I never showed it on this channel, we're actually going to play it now really quickly.
I'm going to say something controversial, and I don't care because if it's
Let me try to make the volume louder.
Well, clearly she can because she deleted the
I don't
video.
care because if it's a lot, it is better to have a following over a black following. Before I go any further, this does not mean that I do not appreciate the people that support me and love me. Okay, that's not what this means. But it is very obvious that black people do not really support black creators. And we wonder why we don't get these huge creators the way that we get these huge creators. And then we complain about it. But we're not supporting each other. And the black creators that do have millions of followers, have a huge fan base, usually have a mixed following. For example, Jackie Aina. Believe it or not, Jackie Aina has a large community following. Monet, a large following. Fanita, a large following. Quinlan Blackwell. I don't know if you guys remember this, but a couple of years ago, she was roasted by the black community because she was so involved in the community. But what's funny is it's the people and the community that are getting them millions and millions of followers that are boosting their careers. Of course, there are nuances here. It's not black and white, no pun intended, but that's really the gist of things. We don't support as much as people support.
All right. Her name is Winnie Parker. Some of you are saying 3. So, Rana, you know about this. N knows about this. Yeah, Shara saying don't recall. So, I thought that this was interesting for a few different reasons. And stop sharing. Um, I think it's sad. First of all, she did not want to say white. I don't know if there's something with TikTok that doesn't allow you to say that, but she was whispering that word. Initially, when I first saw the video, I thought that people had taken that word out, but apparently that's how she recorded it. My understanding with the background of this is she is some sort of influencer, beauty influencer, or something like that, lifestyle influencer. She did a sponsored post for Macy's, and the sponsored post did not do well. People didn't like it, people didn't comment on it, whatever. So she did this video saying that Black people do not support Black content, and it's better for us to have white followings than Black followings. Um, and I just think that that's sad. I think that people like what they like. I think that, and this is just me. This is part of the reason why I don't ever expect to live off of YouTube or social media money, because we get to a point where if, people are not happy or jiving with what we have, then we feel like, Black people are less than. And we already have enough problems with people thinking that our money is less green than everyone else's. Um, I just thought that this was very distasteful. I think that those are the kinds of comments, even if you think them, this is where I always tell you ladies to play chess, not checkers. If you think them, don't post that crap. you know,
Exactly.
don't post it. just, think it and think, okay, it would have been better for her to just pivot to a multicultural audience if that was what she wanted. But this, she's playing chess, not checkers, and she probably ended up losing a great part of her Black following as well because of this. Um, True Mystique is asking what was her niche. I think she's a lifestyle influencer. I don't know the lady, but I think she's a lifestyle influencer. Mokamami, what do you have to say?
Well, I had to look this story up because I don't have TikTok.
Me
But
neither.
right, but I do think that there is definitely some unfairness built into that algorithm in particular, and that's been proven time and time again. Um, and again, I think that they've shown that too. Like, just Black content creators really struggle. But I think Sam Reed Bliss made a point. Why is it that no one gives this type of smoke to like a Marquise Brownlee or some of the other Black gamers who don't have a large Black following, but they kind of give this smoke to Black women who have multicultural followings. But I also think that you know it is challenging to find a lane. It's challenging to build an audience because so many people are on social media. I can't say white, Black better, blah, 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 but I definitely know that the way that these algorithm there's definitely for sure an algorithm bias. But I can't say that Black audiences are not supportive or Black audiences are not worth cultivating. But also, I also can't say that multicultural audiences aren't worth cultivating. So I don't. I definitely think this is something she should have kept to herself because TikTok, you can't really go into context. And if something that's small, like a small little snippet, sounds terrible, that's what's going to go viral. So I don't know. I mean, I feel like maybe she may need to, number one, don't make videos like that. And then two, really think a little bit about what niche you're trying to cultivate because it's not easy. It's not easy on social media.
Yeah, and again, that's why I wonder because she apparently has 100 and something thousand followers, so she's not a small content creator over there. Computer and Coin is saying to make it so bad. Before that, several Black women creators helped Winnie find a new stylist in Atlanta. After she had a really bad experience, they definitely supported her then. Um, Now, you all are saying, and we partially agree with you, she's not fully wrong, but she went about it the wrong way. N is also saying up here, in my opinion, I think it's better when a Black woman has a mixed audience rather than a predominantly Black audience. Black people do not like support Black women. I don't know if I agree with that. Actually, not I don't know. I don't agree with that. I think the Black people are going to support the content that they like. Now, um, True Mystique is right that the biggest Black content creators are based on gossip, lifestyle, and drama. This
That
is
is true.
correct.
That is
This
true.
is correct. So it's not that Black people don't like supporting Black women. Otherwise, there would be no Tasha K. There would be no Lovely T. I know that there are some other, there would be no Yanni or Tanya TKO. These are huge Black influencers. I'm sure, there are other women in lifestyle and things like that. When we are talking about having a YouTube page or having any kind of social media presence, the first thing you got to think about, honestly, is what do you want as a content creator and a person? The second is who do you want to share that message with? And the third is if it never gets big, will I be okay? See, Black women making money, this is kind of like some people like do artistry or they're artists or things like that. I come on Black women making money because it's a way for me to be creative, as crazy as it sounds. This is like my creative outlet, right? I don't ever expect to get big. I don't have to, right? There are other things that we would do that I would do where, yes, I would only have a multicultural audience if I were talking about, um, I don't know, business, for example, um, because that makes more sense. So it's not that, and I just have to disagree. It's not that Black people don't support Black women. I disagree with that. It is that there's certain content that most Black people cater to and move towards. And if you're not in those spaces, it's not that they don't like you because because you're a Black woman. It's that they don't like your content. And I hope I'm making sense with this. Um,
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like I think that like True Mystique said, like there's a lot of things that go right to like gossip, lifestyle drama. But let's be honest, it's the same thing with white YouTube. I mean, there's tons of like and entertainment tonight, whatever, their YouTube channels are huge. And they're doing celebrity gossip too.
mhm.
But so again, just celebrity gossip is just a huge, and lifestyle influencers, I mean, I hate to say it, but they're just a dime a dozen
Mhm.
nowadays. They're just a dime a dozen. I mean, everybody's getting their hair done. Everybody's wearing the same makeup. Everybody's getting a Shein haul. Like, oh, it's just a dime. And Jackie Aina was just doing it at a time before everyone else started. So she's
Yeah.
kind of one of the originals. And I just think that number one, she's a makeup artist and has a better level of talent than the non-makeup artists who are out there.
I
Um,
don't even follow Jackie Aina. I know her name, but other than that, I've never seen a video of hers. It's just not my thing. So, but yeah, you'll only have a few people who get to the tippy top. It is better, honestly, for you to find a little bit more of an obscure talent and be the person that that leads in that. For example, I was on Business Talk with Kay last week, and someone mentioned, I wish there were more Black AI content creators. And
right.
yeah, and that's when you would have a multicultural audience telling people certain things about artificial intelligence and things like that because it's a hot topic and people are looking for the latest information, or they're looking for ways that they can learn AI so that they can improve their careers or start businesses or things like that, you know. Um, Somebody else said, first of all, Nia, hello, welcome, welcome, Nia. I was looking at something and I don't see it anymore, but we're going to move on because we got plenty to go through. Okay, the next story is, let me share my screen here. The next story is, Caesar Pena. Caesar Pena was charged with fraud, and we're all side eyeing DJ Envy. And since I put this together, apparently the feds are looking into DJ Envy and potentially going to arrest him as well. I saw an article about that. So um, if you don't know what happened, DJ Envy and Charlemagne the God obviously are part of the Breakfast Club. And they've been bringing these financial influencers onto the Breakfast Club now for years. Well, one person that they brought on was this guy to the right named Caesar Pena. And Caesar Pena, who is a felon, I believe, um, was teaching people how to get into real estate. And people were bringing in wads of cash for him to purchase properties on their behalf, promising them 20 to 45% returns within 4 to 5 months, which, if anybody's in the financial space, it's impossible to get that. Unless you own your own business and you're just selling your own services to people, right? But it's impossible. And now he has been charged with running a Ponzi scheme. If he is found guilty of his of wire fraud, he has a maximum penalty of 20 years in prison and a fine of $250,000. The interesting thing is he allegedly stole tens of millions of dollars from the community. I think this is interesting for a couple of reasons. The biggest one is that we have these big platforms like the Breakfast Club and like Earn Your Leisure that have been accused of bringing in these sketchy people to talk about financials. Y'all know I love a good wasp. Give me the good fake, not fake, sorry, the good boring wasp any day to come and tell me about financial stuff. But the community is looking for something flashy. It's got to be hip hop, urban. We got to make it rain, all of that stuff. And a lot of people getting caught up. Mokamami, what do you think?
Yeah, I definitely say like I feel like as if the Breakfast Club and Earn Your Leisure are very obsessed with this whole started from the bottom, now we're here type of investor, right? No one wants to really look at, we talked about Charlie Munger. Nobody wants to look at, like Charlie Munger's Almanac, that's one book that's very hard to find, but nobody wants to talk about that steady, boring investment strategy that
Mm-hmm.
actually does work. Everybody's very interested with like the Wall Street Trapper or like people like Caesar Pena and these big returns, or even, I mean, we can say the same thing with the Bernie Madoff scandal or the Sam Bankman-Fried scandal, but where people want these big returns, knowing that the financial industry just doesn't work that way. And I just think it's like they're very obsessed with these stories, and I think that sometimes when the black middle class talks, because that's what DJ Envy is. He is.
Mm-hmm.
He's a
DJ
private
Envy,
kid.
DJ Envy is upper middle class.
He is. I mean, grew up in a upper middle class background, went to
Mhm,
Hampton, like so he's. But again, he puts on a street image. But
mhm,
again, nobody wants to hear from that guy. Nobody wants to hear from that girl. Like, I mean, sometimes you might find that with your content too. Nobody wants to hear from the person who's, everyone wants to hear from the person who got it from the mud, like you say,
mhm,
right? Nobody wants to hear from the middle class person, like, this is how my family has gotten wealth and has kept it.
mhm.
And I think that that's a lot of the thing with number one, knowing their audience, and then two, um, our own uncomfortableness with the bougie black girl or the upwardly mobile black man who is giving you sound financial advice. Like there's a lot of people who are still uncomfortable with that. Black people who are uncomfortable with that.
I agree. I agree. And this goes back to the previous story we talked about. If I came on here expecting a load of black women to, uh, get excited about my channel, I would be sorely disappointed. And I think upwardly mobile black people, I think guys like DJ Envy, who grew up in a very good home, they understand that. And this is why you even see these stories now of these young black people who grew up upper middle class or upper class that all of a sudden decide they want to go live street life. It's like, young man, you grew up in a gated community. Stop it, you know? But there's
Exactly.
but there's something about, oh no, I gotta prove that I'm down and I'm real and all of this stuff. Um, when your parents worked so hard to get you out of that so you would never have to experience that. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
the other thing is that, and people brought this up when this whole thing dropped with DJ Envy. We as black people claim we don't have any money, yet somehow these people are taking tens of millions of dollars for a school that never opened, tens of millions of dollars for real estate that he was selling to more than one person allegedly, according to the complaint. You know, going to conferences where people are making it rain and doing all sorts of craziness. So we have money.
Oh yeah.
We have money collectively and we have money individually. I'm sure all of us waste a lot of money that we could use for other things that would uplift us, and, or we could save that money or things like that. So, Flashaway was saying it's about relatability. Relatability to who? Related, and I'm not saying this mean against you, Flash Wave. I'm just saying, just overall, relatability to who? Why are we the culture? And I'm not saying us here, because we all know better. But why are we the culture where it's cool to be go down in social mobility than up? And I didn't say economic because everybody wants money, but they want it by going down in social class.
I
It's
mean,
stupid.
yeah, I agree. I mean, I think about like, I was at Howard at the time when Diddy was there,
Hmm.
right? So you have this guy, he's from Mount Vernon, he went to private school, but he had this image, and so many people were doing that at that time. Or if you were like a legacy Greek, you had to, oh, don't say that because you could make the other people feel bad. Like, no, like this is something you should aspire to be. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like it's something you should, and no other, not too many other cultures have that problem, right? Where we're having to dress, I guess like they used to call it back then Cosby Show versus Good Times, right?
Hmm.
Why is there a versus? You want what you want, and I just think that we shouldn't, I mean, I remember this whole thing with Offset. His mom is like a whole Delta and his dad's an A5A and they own their own businesses and he still is putting on this street image. Like for what? Like and especially when the other member had had been unalive, like why are you even there? Like why is this even your circle?
Yeah.
Knowing what you're from and knowing the talent you have, you shouldn't have to do that. And I just feel as if relatability to, I mean, I don't know. I think there's a problem with the fact that we are assuming that other Black people can't be aspirational. That's a negative. I don't know. I just that assumption I think is something we have to get rid of. Assuming that other Black people are not aspirational. And as far as young people in hip hop culture, hip hop is 50. Hip
It
hop is not
is.
for young people anymore.
Hip
It's
hop
not.
is middle age.
Yeah, hip hop. Dr. Dre was on the cover of AARP. Like, hip hop is not for young people anymore.
Well, I will say this, and a lot of people can be mad with me as I say this, but oh well. When people prejudge us as Black women, when people prejudge us as Black people, we have to remember where it is coming from. We have to remember that it's not just the media out there that's pushing this. It's also about that, let's call it white woman, 50 years old, when she's met 10 other Black people that she knows in life, and they, or let's say seven of them, because it's not all, right? But seven of them behave in the same manner as a DJ Envy. She's going to assume that you're going to ascribe to that as well until you prove differently. This is why I don't run around demonizing white people individually. I judge individuals on an individual basis. I judge other cultures on an individual basis. So, anyway, um, anything else before we move on to the next topic, which is a good one?
No, this is a good one. The next one is a good one.
Scott Adams. Scott Adams says that Black people are a hate group. We had a whole conversation about Scott Adams. Actually, had two live streams about Scott Adams. Um, I do want to replay his words because I think it's important for us to rehear what he said. So let's hear Scott Adams talk about the fact that he accidentally joined a hate group.
So I realized, as you know, I've been identifying as Black for a while, years now, because I like to be on the winning team, and I like to help. And I always thought, well, if you help the Black community, that's sort of the biggest lever. You can find the biggest benefit. So I thought, well, that's the hardest thing and the biggest benefit. So I'd like to focus a lot of my life resources in helping Black Americans. So much so that I started identifying as Black to just be on the team I was helping. But it turns out that nearly half of that team doesn't think I'm okay to be white, which is, of course, why I identified as black, because so I could be on the winning team for a while. But I have to say, this is the first political poll that ever changed my activities. I don't know that that's ever happened before. Normally you see a poll, you just look at it and you go, whatever. Oh, this is interesting what other people think. But as of today, I'm going to re-identify as white because I don't want to be a member of a hate group. I'd accidentally joined a hate group. So if nearly half of all blacks are not okay with white people, according to this poll, not according to me, according to this poll, that's a hate group. That's a hate group. And I don't want to as white because I don't want to be a member of a hate group. I'd accidentally joined a hate group. So if nearly half of all blacks are not okay with white people, according to this poll, not according to me, according to this poll, that's a hate group. That's a hate group. And I don't want to have anything to do with them. And I would say, based on the current way things are going, the best advice I would give to white people is to get the hell away from black people.
Y'all remember that?
He said the quiet part out loud.
I know the internet went crazy when that story dropped. And we talked about it on here. Talked about it here. First of all, I don't understand why he was identifying as black and saying that we were the winning team. I listened to that again and I'm so like, I'm kind of confused with that, but okay. He later found out that the poll, first of all, was from a skewed group. Secondly, it wasn't that 50% of Black people said it wasn't okay to be white. It was a small percentage, like 20%, that said it wasn't okay to be white. And then the other 30% said, I don't know. And the question was worded in such a way that the respondent could have been like, I don't know what you're asking me. So, his interpretation of the poll was just totally skewed, right? Later on in his commentary, though, and this is where we had our discussion, and some of y'all were roasting me during the discussion that we had on Scott Adams. But he said, I'm going to go from helping Black people as a group, to helping individuals. I will only choose the people I mentor individually, the people I give jobs to individually, and the people I support individually. And what I said to all of you was that white people overall are moving from the group, given the group resources, to individuals. And some people may say, well, Cherie, it's always been an individual thing. Not necessarily so. For the past 30, 40 years that I've seen, the government and certain white organizations have been putting money into the group. And unfortunately, the resources that are going to the group is not helping the group overall. So what I've seen and what I got from Scott Adams, and yes, what he said was problematic, but later on in his statements, we're moving from group to individual. And that is the reason why I have been preaching to all of you to get your own multicultural networks and have individual relationships with people from all ethnicities, because you're going to need people from all ethnicities. Mokamami, what are your thoughts?
I just think that he said the quiet part out loud, and I feel like there are a lot of people with malicious intentions who say, "Oh, well, I've helped Black people." Because I remember recently watching like the Color Purple, the 1985 version of it, because the new movie was coming out, and there was the mayor's wife who was very patronizing in her quote unquote help of Black people, and I think that a lot of the majority culture, they think that way. They're very patronizing in their treatment of, of like African American people. They're very patronizing in their view of us, like, oh, you guys. And I think there was like a skit about it where this guy was coming to like some inner city basketball camp. I forgot who did the skit, and the kid was like, my parents are in cybersecurity. He's like, you know what I mean? Like, and they were just like, and they were like, yeah, you got to help mentor these kids. They might not have much. And then he's like, oh, can you give me a ride home? And the kid has like a Porsche. The little black boy has like a Porsche to give the coach a ride home,
Yeah.
It's like this patronizing view. And I just feel as if he was just saying the quiet part out loud,
Yeah, he did. Look, his statement was problematic. I'm definitely there with you. I also, like I've been saying, I see the pendulum swinging in a lot of ways. Kat is saying that she discovered me because of the Scott Adams video. Well, welcome, Kat. I'm glad I didn't scare you off. Level Up Single Mom is saying he wanted to barter for Black people's favor. It did not work. Girl, you said what Black person hurt his feelings. Something happened. Something happened. Let's see here. Samri is saying that's a better way, a better move, anyways. Help individuals instead of the group. I agree with that. Rana's saying I'd rather be by myself. Yes. So let's move on then to the next thing here. And the reason I
Lord.
selected this one is because this is an upwardly mobile Black woman. This is the professional Black woman that we have been speaking about in Black women making money. And she just did a whole mess at her graduation. So I'm actually going to show this video again for everybody as well, just so you can see this. Let's just see it here. She's at graduation and she does this.
Okay, let's go. You didn't let me get my moment, so I want to say my name is Khadija Diallo, and I'm graduating today. I don't like how you snatched the mic out of my hand, so today is going to be all about me.
Oh, drops the mic. Congratulations!
All right. Embarrassing.
Yeah.
And there, just one thing, Mocha Mommy. And there were people saying in my chat, but what about the white people? What about the white boys that were doing wrestling at graduation? I don't care about them. I grew up at a time when my mother said, if they jump off the Brooklyn Bridge, would you do it too? I don't do what about them isms over here. What she did was embarrassing. What she did is going to cost her long term. It can cost her opportunities. Computer and Coin is right. It was a mess. And it was embarrassing. So, and there were people apologizing for her. There were a couple of people in our chat, but I'm just talking about other people, period, within the Black community. Go ahead, Mocha Mommy.
Well, I mean, first of all, I understand her frustration with them constantly pronouncing her name wrong during all of the graduation festivities. And I think a lot of us as Black women we get so tired of that. Like, we hear them pronounce these complex Eastern European names. I mean, Computer and Coin. I mean, how many times have you watched hockey and you see there's a name on it and there's no vowels and they say that name completely correct, right? But yet they never seem to be able to pronounce our name. So and I understand her frustration, but that is not the way to do it. Not the way to do it when these clips go viral and it could have a professional impact on you. Like, there's so much of a better way she could have done to handle it with the school, with the administration, that would have held them accountable for mispronouncing her name during the entire like graduation festivities. But that was definitely not the way to handle it.
Melanie Meanings is absolutely right. She won her battle, but lost the war. Absolutely right. And what you're saying now, I didn't hear her say in her explanation that the woman mispronounced her name. She said that the white woman here was taking the microphone from Black people, but letting white people talk or other races of people talk. Um, you know, Fortunately, I don't have the issue with a name that is so complicated to say. I understand that, other people come from cultures where it is difficult to pronounce your name. All I'm saying is play chess, not checkers. And I know Mokomami, you agree with that as well. Beulah is
Agreed.
in the building. Beulah is in the building. Hello. Um, so yeah, look, cutting up at graduation, cutting up in a professional environment that just drives me crazy. All right, everybody's favorite topic, number 8, bus driver gate. I'm not going to replay it for you because we all remember it. We all remember Ebony K. Williams was on her show with Ayanla Van Zant, and Ayanla asked her if she would date a bus driver. And Miss Ebony said, if he owns the bus. And then Tyler Perry said, yeah, go on. Pay the mortgage, pay all the bills. If he could just pay the light bill, but he's a good man. He's a good man for you.
That's wow.
And these two individuals were not talking to the impoverished woman. Neither of these individuals were talking to the impoverished woman. This specifically is going to the upwardly mobile professional woman. These messages. Mokomami.
I don't know. I kind of almost feel like these distractors always come about when Black women are doing well. Like every time we're doing well or making strides, these things come along. But I do think that the whole thing with, a couple's relationship dynamics is between that couple. And the fact that we're making this so much of a discussion, like, why are we not really focused on, I think there's another thing too, like with the home ownership, like the mentorship issue, like, why are we talking about the women going down and not the men going up? Because clearly that's a bigger issue in our community, like that lack of access and that lack of financial stability that so many men, especially Black men, African American men have. Like, that really needs to be more of a discussion point, as opposed to being down on Black women for owning homes and having educations. And, the average home in America is something like $420,000. Like, that's just not going to make it on a bus driver salary. No offense to the bus driver, but all the buses were still running in my city. So I guess clearly bus drivers weren't that hurt over what Ebony Williams said. But at the same time, too, there really needs to be more of a focus on mentorship, on these folks get their paper up, because we can't keep having this. We can't keep doing this.
I agree. Computer and Coin said, Bus Driver Gate had the digital Black community in a chokehold for days. Computer and Coin, it was weeks, not days, weeks, my dear. They were talking about, about that for a good 2 weeks, right? Um, and there were a lot of conversations had, part 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Because then we had the original video break, and then Ebony K. Williams did a follow up on her show. Then she went on the Breakfast Club. Then Ayanla did a live stream about it. No, it was at least a couple of weeks that this was talked about. And yes, Mokomami, you are right that people are talking continuously about women downgrading themselves versus men upgrading themselves. And here's the thing, it's not just the Black community. I've seen the white community starting to do this as well. Well, that's not true. I have seen the white community um, talk about, do we have the women do less or do we have the men do more? And what do we need to do to incentivize men in order to do more? But those conversations now in the Black community, they just expect you to do less as a Black woman, or expect you to do well, but then reach back is what's happening. Um, yeah, it's an interesting conversation. Interesting conversation with regards to bus driver gate. We talked about the DV rates when you, as a professional Black woman, dates um, down socioeconomically. Also, you all know I say that the choice of your child's father is the most important financial decision you will ever make.
Very true.
Um,
And the older
and
you get, the more you see it.
mhm, yes, you also could potentially lose out on economic opportunities, job opportunities based on your spouse and who your spouse is. So these are very serious topics. You know, we can laugh and kiki about these things, but for professional Black women, these are these are serious topics, and they can have a ripple effect in a lot of different parts of our lives if we're not careful. So the final thing, Tyler Perry, and y'all know I said this, a man who can only pay the light bill. We're not talking about like in some mega mansion, in the Hollywood Hills. We're just talking about an upwardly mobile Black woman's house. $300 a month. If all he can do is pay the light bill, he should not be dating. Now, I'm not talking about a man who you're married to, he lost his job, he's looking actively for another one, and you've got to hold the house down. Because that's not what Tyler was talking about either.
That's
We're
true.
talking, we're just talking about you meet this man, you're doing well, and all he can do is pay the light bill. That man should not be dating. I don't care what anybody says.
I agree. Or even so, like if you have that arrangement where, one of them has to take on the more domestic duty. He didn't even say that. If he
Mhm,
pays the light bill and gets the laundry done, like if he pays the light bill and prepares most of the meals, because I mean, there are some couples who have that arrangement, like,
mhm.
you know,
But we have
more
to be honest that it
right. But
takes
we
it takes
have,
a
yeah,
specific type of man
right. That's
who is
true.
strong enough mentally and with his self-esteem to be able to do that long term.
Right. But I mean, but that's not even what he was talking about, like
That
you
wasn't
said.
what
Like,
he's talking
so
about.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's it's, I mean, because so then what qualifies him as good? Like, if you're not able to support yourself, what qualifies you as good? Maybe if you're not a good financial partner, you probably might not be a good employee, or you might not be a good friend because you don't have people who are looking for you to live with either. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Mhm. Yeah.
because they'll say good, like there's probably other parts of your life that are not right either. Like
Mhm.
I'm saying, if that's all you can bring to the table, like there's probably other parts of your life that aren't right either, that don't make you
Just
quote
not
good.
probably, definitely other parts of your life that's not in line.
Yeah,
That's not in
yeah.
line. So, all right, let's move to the next thing. Serious topic. Sam Bankman Fried being convicted. So, Sam Bankman Fried was the founder of something called FTX. And FTX was a crypto exchange. So, what was happening was people were um, putting their Bitcoin and their cryptocurrency on his exchange. And it's kind of like a bank where it's supposed to be held for safekeeping. But crypto is not regulated by the FDIC or anything like that. So basically, they were supposed to be the custodian of everyone's Bitcoin and things like that. But that's not what Sam Bankman-Fried and his little girlfriend did. He's been convicted, so I don't have to say allegedly. What happened was people were depositing their cryptocurrency, their Bitcoin, etc., into FTX, owned by Sam Bankman-Fried. Then Sam, without permission from those depositors, were taking that money and investing it in risky assets in a company called Alameda Research. So people started to find out about this. And there's a big company called Binance that basically they did something to kind of shine a light that this was happening. And all of a sudden, all of the depositors wanted to take their money out of FTX, and the whole thing imploded. They didn't have the assets, they didn't have the money, and people couldn't get their money. Turns out 8 billion with a B, $8 billion was lost. And he was convicted in Manhattan this year. So the other thing with Sam Bankman-Fried is that before, like when he was on his rise, he was called the king of crypto. And he did a lot of paid media, ladies. He did a lot of paid media. And this is one of the big things that I want to warn you ladies about. When you see people getting a lot of media coverage, it is usually paid media coverage because he was paying people to write good stories about him. They did not report on the bad stuff that was happening in his business until it was too late. He was also a huge donor to the Democrats. And because he donated so much money politically, I believe, this is just Cherie, my spidey senses, but y'all know my spidey senses usually right. I believe that there were people who knew that these things were happening and they let it go and let it slide longer because he was the money for so many people. The final thing I will say is this is a man from privilege. I think he has 2 professors as parents. Smart guy, smart family, 2-parent household, all of that. So, but this was huge in the business world. The Sam Bankman-Fried conviction was huge this year. Mokamami.
Bernie Madoff 2.0.
Certainly is.
Yeah, I mean, that's those of us who are old enough to remember that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think a lot of us too, like, first of all, there were a lot of people, because I mean, I just know, like, having so many younger coworkers. I mean, it's so weird now being a Gen Xer, like, because so many of your coworkers are so much more younger than you, that how much they talked about crypto and how much they thought that this was going to be their windfall. And they're like, well, stocks are old and 401k is this and blah, 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 and crypto. I'm like, explain it to me. And no one could really come up with a very clear explanation.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that it was so unregulated, not saying that the SEC doesn't have problems, because they do, because clearly, we've had problems. Like 2008 happened and we had an SEC. But I mean, I don't know. There was just so much about this that was like, explain it. There was a lot of celebrities that were on board with this. And I just was like, first of all, I was surprised that he got convicted.
I was too.
Because of just how politically connected he was.
Mm-hmm.
And how he was just like this rock star. And who was the Kramer guy with Mad Money? That guy, remember?
Jim Cramer?
Yeah, they were. I mean, I felt like he was a very similar personality. And it was kind of like, I've seen this before, y'all. Be careful. But again, everybody wants to learn the hard way. Like, I mean, I just know people personally who got kind of caught up in this.
Mm-hmm.
And I just feel like, I don't know. I'm still surprised he got convicted. I'm still surprised. And like you said, like, especially considering that he did like house arrest in his parents' like $2 million mansion. Like, he wasn't even in jail. Like, I still was very surprised that he got convicted.
Girl, they went to the Bahamas and got him. Remember? He was hanging out in the Bahamas.
I do remember that.
And people thought he was not.
arrest.
Yeah, people thought he wasn't going to be extradited and all of that. No, they got him. I think out of this $8 billion, two things. Number one, he took money from the wrong person. And number two, it was just too many people. It was just too many people. I was surprised he was convicted and not just convict. We'll see like what kind of prison, he's going to end up in and things like that. I mean, I don't think he's going to be on a chain gang, but I was surprised as well. I was surprised as well. But then, reading $8 billion, it was a global thing. He probably took money from the wrong people. The wrong people lost money, you know. So, yeah. Um, Anna's saying here, I am currently taking the Black Women Blockchain course, which I love. One thing I learned is that a lot of crypto scams is based on hyping up certain crypto exchanges to make money off of low value coins. This is very,
Very
very
true.
true, which is why I say if you all see anybody doing a whole lot of media and a whole lot of positive media, most of the time people are paying for that media. Most of the time. And he was paying people like $25,000 for an article to write an article about him. Well, if he comes to me and he pays me $25,000, am I going to write a crappy article about him or am I going to write an article buttering him up? And
Yeah, very
then
true.
3, 4, 5 months later, when I notice that he is doing shady stuff, do I then come out and do a retraction? Or do I think, no, because he may give me another 25K? So, yeah. Shara saying, interesting year. Yeah, interesting year. Well, we're halfway through talking about Uncle G. Grant Cardone, y'all, your Uncle G, because he's definitely not not my Uncle G. Excuse me. He's definitely not my Uncle G. But it came out this year that Grant Cardone looking for Black people. We're actually going to play what Grant said. Let's see what Grant said here.
About half my audience is Black under the age of 40 because we go after that audience and we're talking to them in very street terms, if you will, very not big nomenclature. We just keep everything very tight and simple. About half my audience is Black under the age of 40 because we go after that audience and we're talking to them in very street terms, if you will, very not big nomenclature. We just keep everything very tight and simple. About half my audience is.
You heard it. Half his audience is Black, under the age of 40. Street terms, we are a resource for people. We're a resource for people. This came under fire a lot. The Black man's hustler. Yes, Denise, you're absolutely right. Um, this, a lot of people talked about this. A lot of people talked about the fact that Grant Cardone had really shifted because I told you all that I saw the shift in him and I remember getting off the train. He's looking for new money. He's looking for new pockets to, get into his real estate stuff. And he's rubbing shoulders with these big celebrities and things like that. Yeah, I mean, this is, my whole thing is I don't blame him. I blame us for being so
Gullible.
impressionable. Yes. You said gullible. I'm just going to say impressionable. We are. He put Stormy Wellington on his stage. And when we had our Grant Cardone discussion, I played Stormy Wellington. He's going after a certain demographic of Black people. And somebody said it here. Beulah said run. Yeah. Yeah. I got off the Grant Cardone train in 2018. I saw where it was headed and I was like, let me get the hell out of here. Mokamami?
Again, I think just a scam and the whole thing about, started from the bottom, now we're here, right? Like everyone wants that story. Everybody wants that rich come up story. No one wants to talk about the realities of networking and investing. And I mean, nobody wants to talk about that reality, that it takes a long time and it takes preparation. But nobody wants to hear that. Nobody wants to hear that. And I can't just say it's Black people, but nobody wants to hear that.
When you say starting from the bottom,
Yeah, that whole
because
thing.
Grant Cardone did not start from the bottom. He lies to people when he says, I grew up in poverty. Like, you're a damn liar. You
Of
grew up
course.
in a house with a mom and dad. Your dad bought you and your family a house on a lake in Lake Charles, must have been in the 60s. Stop it. Your father died with a life insurance policy. Your mother sold the house, used the life insurance policy. Yes, you say, Grant, she didn't have any skills, so she had to make that money last. But you never said you were hungry.
Nope.
You never said you were homeless. You know how many Black people? This is when I was saying in the initial discussion that we had, is that people like Grant will say, I grew up poor, and we take poor and we put it to our version of poor. And then you listen to the rest of his story and you're like, you weren't poor.
Right. I remember
What
we
are you
said that
talking
about,
about?
yeah, we said that about the Hermosis. Like, she was with me
Yes.
when I had nothing. I'm like, dude, you had $100,000 line of credit. You know, there are working Black people who will never get $100,000 line of credit. Like,
And
really?
not only $100,000 line of credit, but the fact that you said he went to Duke, the people that he knew, he didn't have to sleep on a gym floor if he didn't want to.
Exactly.
He had way too many resources. And I think something else is going with Alex Hermosi, because he did a video, and I didn't watch it. It was just a title saying, I don't go home for Christmas. And I'm like, something weird is happening there. So, you know, Kat is in the building. I haven't seen you in a while either. You just left work, but happy to be here. Glad to have you. Get a glass of wine, pull up. We just talking, we just chatting about the year. Anything else with regards to Grant?
It's like the same scam repackaged.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the hype man and no substance.
Yeah. Beulah saying, what I'm hearing from the community, we want the money without doing the work. It takes work to file an EIN and LLC. And filing an EIN and LLC, that's the easy part of the work that you have to do. I worked this year to build from the ground up this company. I'm going to get the fruits of my labor in 2025. But how many people are willing to really grind for 2 to 3 years, knowing that they can do so much from year, 4 on with regards to their businesses?
And I think that's the discussion that we're not having, like how long it takes. Like, like just right now, we're in our late 40s, my spouse early 50s, right? We're talking about setting our children's future up, like, and, like, because you really do have to think that far ahead. We were talking retirement plans in our 30s. Like, these things just take time, and no one's really saying that. And I get it, because there are a lot of people who do work hard and will never enjoy the fruits of their labor. And I remember I just always remember the expression that my dad always said: I worked a whole lot harder for a lot less money. Right? So I get it. You're spinning your wheels. You're in survival mode. And I understand that. But somebody really has to have the discussion of strategic planning and delayed gratification, because that really is the only tried and true proven way to build wealth. Most of the people who have access to wealth is because their parents had it. And that's just like a lot of the things, and people were talking about, you working hard and why haven't you been here? I'm working hard, but trust me, that money is in somebody else's pocket being spent by somebody else in a whole nother country. Like, it's not even me who's getting to enjoy the fruits of that, because you're investing in that next generation.
Yeah.
But that's the realities of wealth.
It is. It is. As a parent, you will hopefully just leave your child better off and in a better place than you were, you know? Um, Denise is saying, he is the reason why I got off Clubhouse. He was telling a room, don't buy a house. It's a waste of money. I looked and half the room was Black. I heard about this. I know about this. In the meantime, Grant owns 2 houses himself and all sorts of real estate. What he was telling people is, don't buy a house, give the money to me at Cardone Ventures or whatever it is, at Cardone Capital, and I'll invest it for you. Cesar Pena, don't buy your own house, give the money to me, I'll flip it. Those people would have done infinitely better buying their own homes. Infinitely better. So,
You know what's so interesting? I just find it so interesting. He's telling people to not buy a house and he owns several properties. And, we were just having this discussion. Me and my husband were just having this discussion the other day about, he was watching some financial show. And again, the other financial influencer was talking about not buying a house. And, and I was saying, like, okay, is he saying don't buy a house? Or is he saying don't buy a house now? Don't buy a house in a certain zip code right now? Like, what exactly was the discussion? Because I'm not going to say don't buy a house, but I would say just really look at what you're thinking about as far as real estate. I mean, and I know just because, well, number one, interest rates being high, we talked about that with you being in the mortgage industry.
mm-hmm.
Maybe certain zip codes might not be the best place to invest right now because there might be a bubble burst and you might end up in a difficult situation. But to say don't buy a house, I don't know. I think there's a lot of, it's not so black and white. There really needs to be somebody to color in, or there's really a lot of shades of gray in that discussion right now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And yet, I will say, for the supermajority of people, owning a house is the pathway to wealth. If we look at any of the charts, and I can pull those up in some other live stream, a lot of the reason why white people are in the financial position that they're in versus Black people is because of home ownership, is because they're able to tap into that house that they bought in 2003, and all the equity that they have, is because grandma and grandpa are leaving them fully paid off houses. Now, our grandparents leave us fully paid off houses, but because it's in a certain neighborhood, blah, 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 we don't want to keep it. And I understand some of that, right? But how much have we wasted with regards to not having generational financial literacy? And I just, so anyway, Unknown has said he started from the bottom of the upper class. Yes, he did. Now, what I heard about Grant is that truly wealthy people were not taking him seriously with regards to his real estate fund and his real estate ventures, which is why he needed to market to everyday people. I don't know if that's the case. It's just something that I heard, but I would believe that. Because of the way that he carries himself. True wealth is not attracted to that. True wealth wants a quiet wealth advisor. So, yeah, and depending on where it is, Beulah, you can live in grandma's house and save money. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, all right, next. ChatGPT, OpenAI, they fired Sam Altman. And then they hired him back 5 days later. So I did a whole session about this as well.
I remember.
So ChatGPT is the product. OpenAI is actually the name of the company. OpenAI not only has ChatGPT and GPT-4, they also have DALL-E 3, which is the it turns text into art, basically. So they're on the forefront of artificial intelligence, right? Uh, Basically on a Friday afternoon, literally about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, the tech world went crazy because word had gotten out that Sam Altman was fired as CEO of ChatGPT. And ChatGPT at that time was just like a couple of weeks shy of being a year old, right? Baby, Saturday, Microsoft hired Sam Altman. And I told you all when this happened that Microsoft had invested $16 billion into OpenAI and ChatGPT. They said, I'll be damned if we let this man with all of this knowledge go to Google or someplace else. So Microsoft scooped in and said, we will hire you, come work at Microsoft, right? By Monday, nearly 800 employees at ChatGPT OpenAI signed a letter calling for the resignation of the company's board and the rehiring of Sam Altman as CEO. And I later found out that one of the big reasons why so many people, so many employees signed on for this is because the company was about to do they were about to raise more money. ChatGPT is eventually going to have an IPO. I believe, I didn't read this, but I believe a lot of these 800 people have stock
Oct.
options.
Exactly.
And they were about to lose everything because the idiots on the board, I'm going to call them the idiots on the board, fired Sam Altman, a guy who practically everybody in the tech world actually likes. And he's a very, very well connected, and people like him, right? So by Tuesday, he was rehired and the board was gone.
Right. And I think, Samri and some of the other tech girls can testify to this. The reality of the tech industry versus when the business people get involved is often a huge source of conflict at every tech company. Like
Mhm.
the business guys versus the tech guys, the engineers versus the sales guys, like the money and tech are always at odds. Like that's one of the things that I'm finding is so common in that industry. And and I think it's one of the reasons why I think Mark Zuckerberg became a billionaire, because he decided to do the business aspect of Meta himself
Mhm.
early on, of course. And the same thing with Elon Musk, decided to take on a brilliant engineer who decided to take on the business aspect of it. So I think that's what it had a lot to do with. And I think one of the advantages for working these young plucky startups, I know my spouse did the same thing, like these young plucky startups, and sometimes it's better for you because you do get the stock options. So when they
Mhm.
do become publicly traded companies, it benefits. And sometimes people take pay cuts for that. They take a
Mhm.
pay cut because they let you come to work in cargo shorts, and because they have a ping pong table and stock options. Like, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that's why some people do. Like, I know my husband, he loved showing up to work in basketball shorts and having a game room and a nap room. And he could have made way more money someplace else, but they were a plucky startup that gave you stock options. And when it did get that big acquisition, and then you get that big check. So
Mhm.
there's a lot of tech guys who do that purposefully, and you just can't keep disrupting that system with money, because sometimes that's not what people are after. Some people are after the work-life balance. Some people are after the ping pong in the break room. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? That's just the reality.
Yeah. Or some people want to work on something super cool. Being able to say, I helped build ChatGPT is a cool thing to be able to say.
And I bet you he got a ping pong table in the break room.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure. So, yeah. So, anyway, outside of Cassie and Diddy, this was the fastest turnaround story of the year. And we're going to talk about Cassie and Diddy later. But yeah, look, 4 days, 4 days. fired to hired or rehired in 4 days, ladies. So right now they are raising money at $100 billion valuation. People expect this to be a multi-trillion-dollar company, just like Apple. So, yeah, usually comes back to the money. Usually does.
Oh
Let's talk about
boy.
this disappointment. Carly. Carly Russell is a young lady who staged her own kidnapping in July of 2023. She called 911 from a highway. She said that there was a child, a toddler, walking along the highway alone. When the officers arrived on site, they found her vehicle and personal items, uh, but Carly Russell was nowhere to be found. 49 hours people searched for this young lady. It made national news, as we know, at a time when Black women are begging for national news when we go missing. And this little chick, I'm going to try to be respectful. This girl faked her kidnapping, faked her kidnapping. Judge found her guilty and she was sentenced to spend a year in jail and pay nearly 18,000 in restitution. Um, of all the things that happened this year that could have a major impact negatively on Black women, poor and rich, I think you're looking at her. I think the next time, and we know that Black girls go missing every day, people are going to think 3, 4, 5 times before they jump in their car and help because of her. I'm honest. Go ahead, Mokamami.
This was so sad because I felt like she was the catalyst to so many discussions about what was happening here in Texas with so many missing young Black girls.
Mm-hmm.
And she was ended up being one of the catalysts that got a special task force for missing Black girls in the foster care system. This discussion, and then to find out it was a hoax, like, you know what I mean? Like, a lot of people were like, look at this Carly Russell situation, look at this, and people were pointing at it because people had been trying for a long time to really talk about, you're talking about those human trafficking at the border, what's happening to the Black girls that live here in the state? And I'm like, I mean, and the fact that this case was so high profile, like, she stopped to help someone. Look how easily it can happen. Look how easy you can be trafficked. Look at how easy. And then to find out it was a hoax. I mean, granted, it did start a discussion among people, and people started looking into things, and the people who had been doing that advocacy for years finally got recognition. But at the same time, this was really sad. Like, this was, I mean, I'm hoping that I was grateful that she got home safe, and I think a lot of us were, but golly, it was so sad.
Yeah. And that time could have been spent looking for other young Black girls who truly are missing, are trafficked, you know. It just, I think it's going to have a ripple effect for years. I do. Now, the one thing we did see on the good, some people say good, some people not, is the Ebony Alert came out this year as well. Of course, it's controversial because some people feel like, well, why should Black girls and Black women, or Black people, period, because I think it's unisex for the Ebony Alert. Why should Black people have a different alert than everybody else?
Yeah.
And I see both sides of that, but I'm still able to say anything that shines a light on Black women and girls being missing, because usually the light is not shine on that. I'm for. So, yeah, you all are saying very much a disappointment. Denise is saying you forgot about her, girl. Well, that's why we're talking year in review. but everybody here is saying disappointment, disappointment. Situation was hard. 1 year in jail isn't enough. I think a year in jail is enough. I mean, I think
It is.
think that's a while for her to sit and think about what she did. So, um, I was so annoyed about what this will mean for the rest of us moving forward. I was too. I was too. And the city of Detroit ranks top 10 for human and sex trafficking. Pissed off. Yeah. Yeah.
And the
It's
fact that
bad.
Denise brought up Tawana Brawley just
Hmm.
lets you know how long these
It's
things sit
been.
in people's mind
Yep.
when a Black woman makes a false accusation, when
Yep.
so many Black women are missing.
Yep. Yep. Well, let's move on to politics. I
Oh
put this
Lord.
here because I think this is interesting. This is a shift. For years, the Republicans have been wanting to go on mainstream Black media. And for years, they've been saying, we've been left out, we've been left out, we've been left out. Black media won't talk to us, blah, blah, blah. Well, the shift is coming because both Vivek Ramaswamy and Larry Elder, two presidential candidates, were featured on The Breakfast Club. They were also being invited to other Black media as well. I think this is just interesting. I I hmm, I think that the Black community overall is pivoting from the Democrats. Now, I'm not saying we're going to the Republicans en masse or anything like that, but I think especially younger Black people, I think they're a lot more open to not just voting Democrat. Now, I think the Republicans have a lot more to do uh, before Black people in any significant amount are going to vote Republican. But the Republicans are also smart in understanding that, especially Donald Trump's team, that they can target Black men.
Yeah.
And that's the goal and the aim is to target Black men. Love Single Mom is saying, can we vote the Breakfast Club off the island? They're not on my island at all, my dear. So I understand what you're saying. The Breakfast Club is look, but they're going after. So it's very interesting because they're going after the hip hop crowd, right? With this, because that's what the Breakfast Club is. I don't know. They're probably 40-year-old hip hop crowd, right? Um, but yeah, look, they're definitely not on the upwardly mobile island. Yes, yes, my dear. But go ahead, Mokamami. What do you think about this?
So it's very interesting because my daughters believe that Vivek Ramaswamy is like he has no intention of being president. He is just kind of like a secret op to find out how much of the Constitution that the American public actually knows and how much he can sidestep it. So I remember my daughter saying this and then listening to him on the Breakfast Club. And he was basically how he was tiptoeing around the 19th Amendment about, like, discriminating against people who are able to vote with the whole thing with the civics test. And I'm like, what in the Selma, Alabama is this man talking about? Right.
Mm-hmm.
Because he was really just like, and so apparently, I mean, that just brought the radar up with me where he's, and he does this a couple of different times when it comes to like birth and naturalization, and where he just constantly is like sidestepping the Constitution and just to find out how far he can push people. Now, the Constitution was a part of my daughter's schooling, and they don't go to public school, but and she says, and when he did that, and it was interesting because both Charlemagne and Envy were kind of like listening and nodding along. But when the Black woman kind of was pushing back at him, they were like, oh, look at that angry Black woman pushing back. Like when you read the comments underneath. But she was really like offended on behalf of our ancestors and our foremothers and forefathers who had marched and died to get the 19th Amendment and to get the Voting Rights Act passed. Like, you know what I'm saying? He was very disrespectful of that part of our history. And the reason why the Constitution looks the way it looks is because of our efforts. And he seemed very dismissive of that. And when the Black woman was calling him out, she was made to look angry. Now, what I found about Larry Elder in his interview is constantly bringing up the single parent homes again. Now, for a party who claims to be live and let live, they really are talking a lot about legislating people's morality. They claim to be live and let live. They claim to be about freedom, but you're talking, how are you going to legislate people's morality? You really can't. You can't do that. Like, you know what I mean? And it's like, they keep blaming, okay, single parent homes, but then you never really have them follow up with what their solutions are.
I would love that. That's what I was going to bring up is I haven't seen anybody ask them, well, what policies would you enact in order to reduce single motherhood? And it can't just be, well, we got to reduce welfare. Well, I'm gonna need a little bit more than that. And quite honestly, I don't think these guys know either. I don't think they have a plan. I think they're just talking. Um, Now, Vivek, you mentioned that Vivek may be an op. I honestly, now I haven't seen that much of him, but the little bit that I've seen, I thought that he got in as a business opportunity. This is a business guy. He wants to raise his profile. He felt like the best way, and he's a talker. He's a fast talker, right? I thought he was kind of like an Andrew Yang, even though Andrew Yang, I honestly think he did want to be president. I don't think Vivek wants to be president either.
No.
But I thought he looked at Andrew Yang and said, oh, I can raise my profile if I run for president. And then he decided to just run, especially a guy who either never voted for an election or in an election or just started voting 4 years ago in an election. I thought this was a business move for Vivek. But yeah, the legislating single moms, I'm surprised more people are not pulling out the N-word wake up call that Charlemagne had with Larry Elder, But the Breakfast Club seems to be they don't do they don't do well with political discussions. That I don't know why they have these political discussions because they don't do well with them. Joe Biden saying if you don't vote for me, you ain't black. That was on the Breakfast Club. The Breakfast Club just seems to step in it when it comes to these political discussions. And Tez, I like Tez. I know where she's headed. I just think that that's the woman. I just think that she doesn't know how to navigate it in a way that she does not come off as the angry black woman.
That is very true.
Yeah, there's a way to ask those questions and navigate it so that, like a Gail King would, where you just look like you're cool as a cucumber. Because there were problematic things that Larry Elder was saying as well, and I wish that those things would have been highlighted. So yeah.
Which is why I think that sometimes they choose DJs and entertainers and not journalists.
Yeah.
And because I feel like if Republicans were serious, and my older sister who lives in a blue state was here, and she's like, "How are you not afraid?" Because she lives in the DMV, and she says she sees like the January 6th people kind of coming up and protesting all the time in the Capitol, whatever, and.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, it's very interesting because living in a red state, I'm sure my world can testify to this. There is a line. There's like the Donald Trump Republicans, and then there are the other Republicans. Mm-hmm. And I feel as if there's like that's who keeps them in check, in my opinion. Like,
makes sense.
Yeah. Like, and I was saying like Donald Trump can have the like the Bastrop rodeo, but he darn sure ain't gonna speak in Minute Maid. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there is like this divide around the Republicans. And I feel as if they're having like the Trump Republicans, who I feel like Ramaswamy and Larry Elder might be trying to jump on that train. They're the ones who are trying to come over here. It's not the other Republicans. It's not like
Nikki
Nikki's like
Haley is not
the
trying to
Nikki.
come on the Breakfast
Right,
Club. Yeah.
right, right.
Or
Like
Ron DeSantis or those
right,
guys. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Like I
Yeah.
just
That
feel as
makes
if it's a
sense.
certain type of Republican who is
The
trying to
flamboyant.
right.
That
Hmm.
makes sense. That actually is a good observation. I have to sit with that, but that makes sense because they aren't. They want to stay in their safe, secure, like DeSantis, Nikki Haley, those individuals want to stay in their safe, secure bubbles. Um, so whereas Larry Elder and Vivek and even Candace Owens, in a way, is like, well, I tried to go and talk to those Negroes, but they wouldn't listen to me. So, like I said, I'm conservative, but I see both sides of this whole thing. So, well, let's talk about the elephant in the room. I was going to call this Me Too hip hop, but I just had to change it to Me Too because it's bigger than Cassie versus Diddy now. Now, of course,
Agreed.
we know what happened with Cassie and Diddy. Uh, Even white people were saying, white lawyers were saying this had to have been the world's fastest or the country's fastest settlement ever, ever. 24 hours later, Diddy underestimated Cassie tremendously. And who knows how much money she walked away with, but it probably was a whole lot of money. And he's probably still paying people off to keep quiet.
Very true.
But now other stuff is bubbling over. We've seen allegations against TD Jakes, allegations against an unnamed Tyler Perry, um, Mary J. Blige, allegations against some of the women in the industry. And it's not Me Too hip hop. It seems to be Me Too Black America. No, Me Too Black entertainment, I should say. Me Too Black entertainment. And this is going to spill over into 2024
Right. And I
and
think
beyond.
Lizzo
Mhm.
caught up in some of this too. So
Yep.
I don't know. I think I said this before. I said the money's not going to be in divorce anymore. It's going to be in NDAs, right?
Yeah.
Keeping quiet, keeping people's secrets.
Yeah.
But I mean, the thing about it was, I thought it was interesting how nobody said, "Oh, Diddy would never." Nobody
I didn't
said
hear
that.
anybody say that. No.
And then of course, I think particularly in the state of New York, with that survivor's law,
Mhm.
that a bunch of people spoke up. Believe it or not, some of the most common cases that came up with the survivor's law were women in the correctional system.
I saw your post about that, and I didn't think
Yeah.
about that until you had posted it, and I thought,
Yeah.
oh my goodness,
So I mean, because
it's
I mean,
true.
I think it was like Jamie Foxx and, like you said,
Mhm.
Diddy, and of course, I think this is, like you said, it's going to spill into 2024 because it's not the end of it. But I mean, the celebrity high profile cases is one thing, but I'm pretty sure foster care is going to be another one.
Oh yes.
You know,
And there may
so
not be a statute of limitations as much on foster care if the kids were young enough, depending on what state they were in.
so I just think this is going to be the first of many.
Mm-hmm. Unknown is saying heaps of hush money. Yep, absolutely right. So yeah, look, I am just watching, just taking a step back and watching because this is going to get serious. The one thing that I will say is that, and I did this as a session for all of you ladies, a live stream. I said, we're able to make money now without quote unquote them. There used to be a time when you had to go through the industry gatekeepers in order to have a career. Now you can be an Issa Rae. Now you can write and produce and direct your own stuff with an iPhone and with, a few ideas going into ChatGPT or something like that. Probably don't put your intellectual property in a ChatGPT, but some other GPT in order to help you write. There's creative writing GPTs as well that'll help you write books and help you with character development and things like that. So we as women don't have to do the things that we at one point had to do in order to get into the entertainment industry and in order to be successful. That's a great thing, you
That is
know?
true. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Next thing. You're fired. Yes, ladies. Tucker Carlson was fired in 2023. Don Lemon fired in 2023. And Kevin McCarthy is the guy in the middle. You may say, who is Kevin McCarthy? He
Speaker of the
was
House.
the former Speaker of the House, fired, voted out, voted in at the beginning of 2023, voted out at the end of 2023. And the interesting thing about Kevin McCarthy is that they had a hard time finding somebody else to become the next Speaker of the House, and they were trying to get money to Israel, and they couldn't because you couldn't do it without having a Speaker of the House. So this was an interesting year. It definitely, especially with Tucker Carlson having the number one show on Fox News, it let people know that you cannot be too, there's no one single person that is so big that they cannot be let go. Um, so yeah, Mokamani, thoughts?
Tucker Carlson really surprised me as to just how much of a juggernaut he was, then moving to X and being a flop. Like, that's what surprised me the most with the Tucker Carlson firing, because he really could have created, he really did have his own somewhat brand. But then again, I remember I did like a live stream on how they did Gretchen Wilson and I'm sorry, what was her name? Megyn Kelly. Right. So Fox has done a couple people dirty.
They've done a lot of
that
people dirty.
Even though they've been, huge ratings boosters. As far as Don Lemon is concerned, he's been a mess too. I mean, there was a couple times. I think there was one New Year's Eve when he was drunk on air. He's had a lot of problems. I just feel like that. I feel like a lot of people who watched CNN saw that coming. Also, too, CNN had a very similar shakeup to ESPN, where it's just not a lot of people are watching, and you can't keep those big paychecks on anymore. And Kevin McCarthy, I don't know. I think that's one thing. Republicans have a lot of in-house issues they got to work out. They're talking about reaching out to other people, but like, y'all got to clean your house a little bit. Like, you know what I mean? Y'all got to clean your house a little bit before you really start recruiting. Before y'all start inviting company. Like, you know what I mean? That's my opinion about, not saying that I'm a Democrat, but I'm just saying Republicans in general got to clean their house before they start inviting company. That's my opinion.
That is very true. The Republican Party is very fractured right now. Now, the interesting thing about it is that Republicans look at Democrats and say that those Democrats, they stick together. And the Democrats look at the Republicans and say, those Republicans stick together. And the truth is that these two-party systems are fracturing like never before. And there are people who have to cobble together these coalitions in order to win elections. It really isn't about governing anymore. It's just about winning elections and staying in power long enough to get whatever agenda you want to get done. The Republicans, if you are too far for Trump, then you can't win general elections. If you're too against Trump, then you can't win the primary. If you get into office and you don't stand up for Trump enough, they're going to fire you. If you do stand up for Trump, they're going to let you go. So it's just craziness that's happening on the Republican side, and the version of that is happening on the Democrat side as well.
Oh yeah. Especially with Nancy Pelosi deciding to run again. Like, what was that about? Like, they didn't want you.
I didn't know that.
I heard that she had decided to run it. Like, you know what I mean? Because
Nancy needs to hang it up.
Yeah, because there was a lot of, Democrats he and caw, and I'm like, you know what? Don't laugh too hard, because, you guys might have the same issue if you take back over the House in the next election.
Yeah. I want to say one more thing about Tucker Carlson, because you had mentioned him going on X. He made the wrong move. I don't know if he does not have business savvy or what, but he should have gone the path of breaking points with Saagar Njadi, I think is his last name, and Crystal Ball. Tucker could have, because a lot of people are not on Twitter like that. A lot of people, Twitter is, he would have done better on Facebook than on Twitter,
True.
right? A lot of his constituents aren't on there, and a lot of people are not on X. I believe, I don't know, I don't have any proof. I just believe that, what's his name? Elon probably waved a check in front of him and he took it. Instead of saying, you know what, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to distribute my content across all platforms. I'm going to build a membership site. I'm going to have exclusive content, whatever his exclusive content was going to be, etc. Going on X and having X be his primary platform, elites are attracted to that, but the common person who was attracted to Tucker Carlson, they aren't on Twitter like that. It's just not. It just didn't make sense.
That's a good point because, Fox News in general has a much older audience.
Mm-hmm.
And then number two, I mean, Twitter kind of tried to brand itself as the only free speech platform. So I could see why, you know what I mean? But again, it was a bad move. I don't know. I mean, I know even Patrick Bet David said, hey, you come on to this network. But then again, that would have been pretty much, because that guy's a salesman through and through. So
Yes.
then you probably would have had you selling things. But then again, I could sort of understand too, because, Daily Wire has had some financial issues and Turning Point USA is having some financial issues where you start getting all that speculative money involved and then you're not able to pay it back through memberships and products placement and all that stuff. So I mean, I could see why he would not opt to do the business side of it, but again, it just was a bad move. I'm just surprised, because he could have been a juggernaut.
He could have. And that's why I said going the Breaking Points way, the way that Crystal and Sagar has done. I mean, obviously I don't know their numbers, but they seem to have done their business model right. And Tucker could have done the same thing. Even Alex Jones is his name. Alex Jones. I mean, he was saying crazy stuff about Sandy Hook.
Yeah, right.
He's nuts, right? He was saying crazy stuff about Sandy Hook, but the guy was making, my understanding is tens of millions of dollars a year. And he was off of all of these major platforms, but people followed him, So, anyway. But yeah, I mean, what I learned from this is you're not too big to be brought down several yards. All right, let's kiki. I'm going to kiki partially. But then the other part of it to me was really sad, right? So this little chick here on the screen, Pearl, I'm going to actually show her video and then we're going to talk about what she said. And we're going to talk about the Black men who supported and defended her. All right, let's listen to this. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't put it on the right thing. Hold on. I meant to, let me bring it back here. I'm sorry, everybody. Mocha Mommy, why didn't you tell me it wasn't showing?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Holocaust was not special and all countries have done that.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
so you're saying, why is the Holocaust special?
Yeah, basically.
Oh. Okay, what do you mean basically?
Well, yeah, I mean, because of course, we're getting into the details of it, but yeah, that's the gist.
Yeah, I mean, but you kind of deny it happened.
I denied some of the parts of it.
You deny parts of it don't seem realistic to you. You think they're embellished upon.
I think they're embellished, yeah.
The same way. This sounds, oh gosh.
Oh boy.
They're gonna get trouble. This sounds similar to the slavery stuff too, because that's literally the founder of, or the guy who made Roots said, I wanted a myth for my people to live by. So they often, but that's what they do is they embellish. And I'm not trying to say it wasn't horrible. It was.
Right.
But they want to make it like more horrible so that they can control people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think she believes what she's saying half the time?
Hell no. Hell no. And she got worse than this. She started talking about women shouldn't vote and crazy stuff.
Yeah, I think she's a professional sensationalist.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But my point of it was honestly not about her. It was about the Black men who supported her after she said that, who had her on their platforms and said, don't talk about Miss Pearl like that. She didn't mean it. And then a man who is supposed to be wealthy in a Versace coat and Versace shoes saying, well, you know, you shouldn't talk about Pearl. Pearl is successful. It's not for me. It wasn't about Pearl. It was about the Black men who supported her, thinking that she was going to be the next Kevin Samuels. And if they didn't get on board, they were going to miss out. And I had heard about these things. I'll let you talk in a minute, Mug Mommy. I had heard about these things, but I had never seen it. Honestly, I have to admit, the Black men that I know in real life, I had never seen it. When I saw this on social media, I have to admit, I was like, I had heard it, but if I hadn't seen the groveling that was happening, I would have never believed it. It just was like, oh my goodness. So to me, and then I'll let you go, Mocha Mommy, I'm always telling you ladies to have your resources together. To me, I felt like the men who supported her do not have money, do not have resources, and felt like the only way that they could continue to make it in YouTube space was to get on her bandwagon. That's the way I felt. Go ahead, Mocha Mommy.
Well, I agree with that. I agree that there are a lot of people who needed to jump on because I mean, again, they feel as if red pill YouTube is lucrative, and it's really not. Like social commentary YouTube is not as lucrative as some other areas. YouTube is still the second largest search engine, and people are using it for other things. So if you're on like hobbyist YouTube or how-to YouTube, instructional YouTube, that's where the real money is. You know, product review YouTube, that's where the real money is. But again, she caters to an audience who doesn't do that type of due diligence. And I mean, I don't know. I mean, people who supported her, I mean, she knows what she's doing. She knows how to make a dollar, you know, and it's not surprising. And I just feel as if she knows how to take advantage of those gullible audiences. And yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I just feel like this was all just manufactured sensationalism.
I agree that it was manufactured sensationalism on her part. Absolutely. I would believe that the Black men who supported her also joined in on the sensationalism at the detriment of their own image, especially men who are crying about the color purple.
Yes.
And what the color purple did.
And haven't even seen the new one.
Haven't seen the new one.
Probably haven't seen the old one.
You know, and I listened to why well, most of them cannot articulate why they had a problem with the color purple, but I listened to enough of them to figure out why they had a problem with the color purple. Uh, and then you support this statement, and then you want to lead the community. And then you want to say Black women don't want to follow us.
And then want to vote for people like Vivek Ramaswamy. Like I feel like they're all related. Like they were all related.
Yeah.
In some way.
So anyway, so then let's talk about the next topic, which is not just Pearl, but demonetization happened to 3 big YouTubers. Pearl was one of them. Fresh and Fit and Cynthia was demonetized this year. I think that YouTube is cleaning house. I think a lot of the social companies are cleaning house again. And I say again is because I think that they cleaned house a few years ago as well. And now we see them cleaning house again. The other thing is, just like with the Tucker Carlson and Don Lemon, you're not too big to be removed and to be brought down. So yeah, demonetization was huge this year. And people talked about all 3 of these people being demonetized for weeks. For weeks.
Yeah. So 2012 was the last big house cleaning, adpocalypse, where certain companies didn't want their ads running on certain pieces of content because they did not want to be associated with the words that were coming out of the content creator's mouth. So YouTube is having that again, having to prove themselves to be fiscally sound, with Patreon and Rumble and Circle and all the other social media apps, Clubhouse, that they have to compete against now, having to be a fiscally sound company. And so from what I understand, how it was explained to me, especially during the World Series while I was helping sports YouTubers, they simply can't watch everything, right? So you have to have like a virtual assistant staff that will watch things for you, tag things for you, write catchphrases for you, and highlight important things for you, because you can't watch everything. So one of the things that they were saying is they have to be really strategic about who's watching what when, and watch your analytics, because let's say your video is sponsored by DraftKings. If enough people don't sign up, DraftKings then drops you as a content creator. So you have to make sure that you're reporting on the teams and on the sports that people who are likely to do DraftKings will do, right? So, or MGM. So it's a big thing where you not only have to create content and get views, but your viewers have to click on those ads, and then those ads have to convert, or they have to use that little affiliate link. And so that's where a lot of this demonetization, from what I understand, how it's explained to me, that's where it comes into play. Like, are those people clicking on your ads? Are they clicking on ads? Is their watch hours turning into sales? And that's kind of where YouTube may be cleaning more house.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's several things. So it could be partially that, I don't doubt it. It could be partially that people are seeing toxic behavior spill into the street too much.
That too.
I know white America is very concerned about men, about white men specifically, not doing as well, and some of this content being targeted to them. And because of that, there was some guy saying that, was it Rolla Tomasi, saying that men in their 20s should get vasectomies and not have children at all.
I remember that.
Yes, I think that happened this year as well. I think Matt Walsh was talking about it. So I believe that there are things that people are trying to nip in the bud early on, Now, of course, Cynthia is a different matter. But I find it very interesting with Cynthia that of all the videos that she's done and all the people that have flagged her pages, it did take a white woman journalist to bring her down. That didn't escape me. Um, I don't know what happened there, but if what she is saying is true, and this was the woman that flagged her video and flagged her channel and got her channel taken down, I think that that's very interesting as well.
Yeah, I had no idea that it was a specific person because her videos are flagged all the time, and I had no idea.
Mm-hmm.
Now I remember there was a joke going around like that. I think famous he was saying something like, "Oh, it's probably some woman who was on Who They Really Choose who got mad."
Oh my goodness.
And so I mean, and that was like a running joke, but I had no idea that it was linked to a journalist. Like, wow. Huh.
Yeah, that's what has been said and what has been reported. So obviously, I don't know. I'm just kind of reporting on what was reported in some of the people's videos with regards to this. But yeah, look, in my opinion, this is just Cherie's opinion. In my opinion, if you're going to do any of these platforms full time, you would better have your resources together and you better have a real business strategy that does not include being on their platforms long term, especially the more salacious you are. Now, if you're doing product reviews for artificial intelligence products or things like that, that's one thing. But the more salacious you are, which of course brings the views, especially in Black social media, right? The more salacious you are, the more you would better have a real business strategy. And Stephanie, good to see you. Good to see you. Go ahead, Mokamami.
Yeah, I Fresh and Fit particularly, I heard had the big conversion problem where all these views but no sales. Like that's what I heard. Like a lot of you, and they went on a lot of other people's platforms too, and no sale. Like that was the thing. Like they just couldn't converge. So when I said like what I said about like monetization, like Fresh and Fit was the specific example they used. All these viewers, all these comments, but nobody's buying anything.
And I guess I just find that interesting. Maybe I just don't know enough about the economics of advertising, because I do know that YouTube takes a healthy chunk of people's super chats.
40% of the super chats, yeah.
And Fresh and Fit were getting, my understanding, probably tens of thousands of dollars of super chats every month, if not more. So the fact that they did not have an audience that was supporting advertising, I guess I would be curious to know, and I'm not doubting it, Mokamami. I'm just saying I would love to know more about the unit economics of the advertising and how much more profitable that is, so much that you would demonetize a Fresh and Fit channel because their audience is not clicking on anything and buying things.
Well, I don't doubt that it's advertisers may be complaining at YouTube, I don't want my ads running on this platform.
Yeah.
Right. That could be one thing. And another thing too, I didn't know this either until I was told super chats can be faked.
I didn't know that.
The ones that you see in Canadian dollars, some of them can be faked. The same way you can buy likes, the same way you can like artificially proliferate your pages. So some things can be, fake. Because I mean, I see those ads all the time, like especially on Instagram where you can buy likes and things like that to move your. It's similar on YouTube, and I think that maybe they were some of it. And I also do think that I do definitely know that YouTube wants to clean house, especially considering how many young people are using it. That's a huge concern. People under 18, parents probably complaining, and I definitely know that is a part. But I know for a fact that people were saying Fresh and Fit, in particular, lots of views, lots of clicks, but very low sales on everything from their courses to click on the ads to their affiliate links. So they just didn't I guess like speculative money and venture capital. Like they just
Mhm.
didn't pan out.
That's very interesting. I have to look at that a little bit more. I
Yeah.
do. Well, let's move on to the next topic, which are the labor strikes. So, this is, of course, a serious topic. There were a lot of labor strikes this year, and I'm actually going to read from an article for all of you ladies because I want to make sure that I get this information correct for all of you. So, this is from Investopedia. Organized labor's win in 2023 may spur more strikes in 2024. This was actually published earlier today. So, it's saying here that this person is saying, I suspect the success of the UAW, Teamsters, etc., will lead to continued activism and the prospects of disputes if the labor market stays strong, according to Harvard University labor economist Lawrence Katz. Next year's calendar of major contract expirations includes communications workers at AT&T in April, Hollywood crew members in July, and dock workers and Boeing machinists in September. Already, there's speculation that strikes next autumn could affect the presidential election. So, what happened this year is there were 6 weeks of strikes against General Motors, Ford, and Stellantis. That was the United Auto Workers strike, the UAW strike. Then the UPS drivers, they averted a strike by 330,000 workers represented by the Teamsters Union. So they got significant pay increases. My understanding is now their drivers are making like 170,000 a year or something like that. They did.
Yes and no.
Yes and no? Okay, you can tell me more about that. Um, they also got an air conditioning and more trucks. Look, I'm all for that. I don't want my UPS driver driving in the heat unnecessarily. So, Hollywood writers, healthcare workers, there was a big strike with Kaiser. Las Vegas culinary workers and Detroit casino employees also scored gains this year. So, really, it's about labor striking back and the fact that more labor organizations could be striking next year as well. What do you think about these things, Mokomami?
The other two would be Hormel, the meat people, the meat
Hmm.
company. That was another big one that just averted a big, huge strike that could have messed up our food supply chain. And Abbott Laboratories, who makes everything from baby formula to medical supplies, sterile medical supply packaging.
Mm.
So that was another big one that could have definitely messed up supply chain issues. I think UPS was the biggest win. And a lot of the money that they're getting is not necessarily money in their paychecks, but money they would get for things like their healthcare coverage and disability because of how many of them are risking injury on the job. So that was another thing, like pay into their paychecks, bigger contributions into short-term disability, long-term disability, things like that. So that was, are they making $47 an hour? Some of them, yes. But, some of them are also getting bigger contributions in their paycheck from their employer for their healthcare coverage. And a lot of that was real similar to what was going on with the Kaiser workers as well, because exposure to RSV, COVID, they want their employer to pay more towards sick leave, short-term disability, and their healthcare coverage.
Yeah. So first of all, Jay Antoinette, I don't think I acknowledged you. So hello, good to see you here. Happy New Year. Flo Jersey is saying hello to Mokomami, and my world is here as well. So I just wanted to make sure I said hello to all of you. One thing that I will say with regards to all of this is AI and robotics. AI and robotics. Number one is companies are having record profits right now because inflation went up, prices went up. Wages didn't keep up with price with the profits within these companies, etc. But these companies are putting major money into drones, into robots, into artificial intelligence, etc. Now, SAG is the Screen Actors Guild, and I know one of the big things that they were fighting was like their image and likeness being used in artificial intelligence and people not getting paid long term. One of the things I know with the Writers Guild that they were concerned about is artificial intelligence taking the jobs of human writers. So it'll be interesting to see over time how these labor strikes are going to affect the way that corporate America makes decisions about labor. Um, it'll just be interesting to see. So all I
Yeah,
can
and
say
they
is
won the
buckle up.
battle but didn't win the war. They
Hmm.
won the battle, didn't win.
Yeah.
I think that's what Elon Musk was saying too, especially when it came to the United Auto Workers strike. Um, but again, I think a lot of it too with United Auto Workers, weren't they really upset about the $22 million bonus the CEO got, but then couldn't give them more paid family time off or something like that? I mean, I know that was like a sticking point.
It's possible. I didn't know that. I don't know that much about them individually, about these, and except for the Screen Actors Guild. I was following that a little bit more, but it doesn't surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me if that was an issue. And it probably wasn't just the CEO. It was probably all of the C-suite, all
Yeah,
of the
exactly.
board
All those
members,
executives.
etc. Yes. So, and it's understandable as well because there was a chart that I had in here and I ended up taking it out just because we didn't have time today, that said that in 2012, in order to afford the median house in the United States, you only needed to make a $41,000 salary. Mokamami, in 2023, how much money do you think a person needs to make or a family needs to have in order to afford the median house?
We were talking about this. It's over 125,000.
Yeah, it's 114,000.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
100, and a lot of people aren't making that kind of money. And there was a time when you could be married and you could pull your money together and all of a sudden you've got $50,000, $60,000 and you can buy a house and things like that. And now this is where the rich get richer and the poor are getting poorer because of this. So these laborers are right to want more money just because it takes so much more money in order to survive. So, you know, but next 10 years, next 15 years, 20 years, it'll be interesting to see how labor shifts in this country because these individuals, if I'm looking at the screen here, these individuals to me look between the ages of 35 and 45. They've got another 20 years of work in them
Right.
from what I see on the screen. So it'll be interesting to see what happens overall. Anything else before we move on to the next thing?
No.
All right. Let's talk about reproductive rights. Reproductive rights. And the red states protecting their reproductive rights. So there was an election that happened a couple of months ago. Uh, Ohio, which is a red state, enshrined abortion protections into its state's constitution, even though now the Ohio lawmakers are trying to figure out a way to get around that. Um, in Kentucky, another red state, they reelected a pro abortion rights governor, Andy Beshear. In Virginia, the Republican governor, Glenn Youngkin, wanted to put a 15-week ban on abortion, and Virginia rejected that. In Pennsylvania, they sent an abortion rights supporter to the state Supreme Court. This is basically defying partisanship. People thought at one point that the majority of Republicans were pro life and the majority of Democrats were pro choice. turns out, I think it's over 70% of America overall are pro choice. And the final thing I say before I toss it over to Mokamami is I am fascinated by this white woman in Texas who is pregnant. She is
Yeah.
married.
Trisomy 18. Yeah.
Mm, She's married. She wants to have more children. She has a fetus in her that is not going to make it. And the state is telling her that she cannot have an abortion. I think she went to court and they said she could, and then they immediately took it to the Supreme Court of the state and they knocked it down. And to me, the reason why her case is fascinating to me is because you have the perfect person, quote unquote, perfect person that these individuals said that they wanted to protect. They want to protect this woman, this white woman. She's married, she's having a family. We want this type of woman to have more children or to have children, right? She wants to have more children, yet the child that is in her now, the fetus that is in her now, is going to negatively impact her ability to have more children. And yet, they are trying to tell her that she cannot exercise her reproductive rights. And I'm going to say one final thing before I toss it over to you. I am not pro abortion willy nilly. If you are doing adult things without protection and just being, what do you call it? Um, if you're not being cautious, if you're being reckless, that's one thing. But the reason that I want to protect reproductive rights is because of situations like this. These things do happen, and women do need to have um, options medically. And as conservative as I am with this, my only issue is seeing it actually happening, seeing the court cases that are happening. It's like you all don't know, when I say you all, I mean the conservatives don't know like how to put any kind of common sense to these laws. So, Mokamani, you're actually in healthcare as well, so it'd be interesting to hear your comments about this.
Right. So when lawmakers try to make decisions for doctors,
Hmm.
so believe it or not, right now in Texas, we are facing a critical shortage of people who do women's health and of gynecologists, obstetricians who have just left the state simply because they don't want to be held criminally liable for making a medical decision that could impact the law. It's just kind of a mess. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. So it's just a mess in the medical community overall. And just situations like this, I mean, we also have a huge black market for, oh my gosh, its name is escaping me, but basically the active ingredient in the medication for terminations.
Hmm.
That is like a huge black market drug right now. So it's just, and again, when we look at the statistics willy nilly, most of the women who do have a termination usually has more than one child or has a child already. They're in a steady relationship and maybe they have two kids and they just can't afford a third. That maybe they were on some form of birth control, but it failed them because of just the way birth control is written and given. The side effects of it for some people, especially lower income people who don't have access to as many choices in birth control, particularly pills. So, the majority of them happen at the 8 to 12 week mark. So these late term things that they're using to scare people turn out to not be true.
Hmm.
And then again, I just think you can't underestimate the power of the woman voter.
Absolutely. Or the man voter who wants to protect his rights as well, wants to have that flexibility. Um, I will say this, and we haven't had this discussion on this uh, channel, but I'm thinking I might in 2024 because I do have a lot of young women who watch this channel, and we talk all the time about playing chestnut checkers. If you are a young woman of childbearing age, do you move to a red state? Do you move to a red state with draconian laws when it comes to this, with the understanding that if something happens and you need to have um, an abortion, or you need to exercise your reproductive rights, and I'm not talking careless, thank you, my world, careless, right? And reckless reproduction. I'm not talking about that situation. I'm just talking about like this woman in Texas right now where she's facing infertility and the law is stopping her. I think that's a very a serious conversation that if you are under the age of 35 and you want to have children, that you may want to think about, because so many of us are saying, oh, I want to move to Houston. I want to move to Dallas. I want to move to Atlanta. You want to move to these red states, but are you really thinking about this aspect of it if you are of childbearing age? Or at least having a plan B. And when I say plan B, I don't mean the pill. I mean, like, what are you going to do if? And do you have the resources to go to a different state if it needs to be taken care of? And Beulah's right. Some rural and urban areas are closing down their OBGYN departments. Yeah. I bet you some of these gynecologists in some of these red states can't even get medical malpractice, if I were to look into it, or the med mal is so high that it's ridiculous. Anything else, Mocha Mommy, about this? I think I want to do a whole show about this at one point.
I think that's a good idea, because then there needs to be, I mean, I know Samry talked about it on her channel too, like advocacy for yourself when it comes to affordable and accessible birth control, so you're not ending up in the situation that forces most women to have to seek terminations.
Yeah. So, Kat, it brings up a good point. Usually, these states also have lower cost of living, so that's a difficult decision for a young woman, given that they often face financial limitations. And I see your face there, and you're right. You're right. It's a tough decision that any young lady would have to make, but I think it's an important decision as well. Yeah, I want to do a show on this. I want to do more research, and I probably want to have a panel of people who know more about this than I do. But I think, especially as upwardly mobile Black women, it's important for um, our younger ladies to have a safe space where they can have these conversations and really figure out, what they're going to do. Um, or do they move to a red state with reproductive rights? Because right now it's not Texas, it's not Louisiana, some of these other states. So Mentor Shelley is in the building. Hello, Mentor Shelley.
Great content
Hello.
creator.
Yes, I love her. And Rana's saying they will put her in jail. Yeah. So, it's a tough decision that you're going to have to make, that I didn't have to make when I was your age. But I just want you all to think chestnut checkers, Um, and Anona saying increase your income and be in a more flexible location. Yeah, if that's possible. If that's possible. So we got 3 more things here. The global wars, the migrant crisis, of course, super huge. We know what happened with Israel and Hamas. I was telling Mokamami that I do not feel like getting into either of that, either side, just because, people are coming to people's channels wanting Black people to align with one or the other, and I don't feel like doing that. But it was a very pivotal thing that happened this year. The debt that we're getting into because of these global wars is going to affect us for years. We're probably never going to get out of it. Also, the migrant crisis. Black people are starting to fight back in these impoverished neighborhoods in Chicago, other places. I even heard Black people saying, well, maybe we should talk to Trump. Maybe he should come to Chicago and let's sit down with him. So, politically, economically, there are a lot of things happening in this country that are going to have ripple effects for years and years to come. And I'm just paying attention, but I'm not really talking about it, even though I have opinions. Well, I'll talk about the migrant crisis, but the wars, especially the Middle East war, I'm just staying out of right now. I just don't feel like having my resources drained by some of these individuals. So, Mokamani, you have anything to say?
Yeah, well, as far as, the military industrial complex and war, it's very interesting too how we're spending on wars in Ukraine and in other parts of the world, but we're having just as many human rights violations to our south and not doing anything about that. And that's directly impacting us. Right? The human rights violations that are happening in these other countries, we have people fleeing, Turkey, Lebanon, they have those issues with those migrants, Poland, England, they have those problems with those immigrant, but we having human rights violations that are happening south of us that we know nothing about, that the American people know nothing about, that's causing this migration crisis. And we're not investing a single dollar in trying to solve it. And it's directly impacting us. So, I'm not mad at anyone who needs to leave a human rights crisis that's happening within their borders. But at the same time, too, it's interesting we're sending 100 million to Ukraine, but not anything to what's happening in Venezuela, Mexico, or Costa Rica.
I believe in my conspiracy theory that they want the cheap labor.
Very true. Could possibly.
Yes. And Stephanie's saying, well said, Mokamami. Yeah, she's right. Both of you are right about this. It's just, I just don't know what to do except to watch and to maneuver accordingly, because it's going to have an economic impact on us. And at some point, the US government is going to implode economically. And I don't know when that's going to happen, but it is going to happen. We can't keep spending money and spending money and spending money. And the corporations are getting taxed less. The people are getting taxed more. People can't afford to buy their first house, live the American dream,
buy food,
pay for energy costs. There are people now paying $1,000 a month for a car note that's not like some flashy Lamborghini, but just a regular car. At some point, the American economy is going to implode at some point. So, Blossoming Bloom is in the building. Hello, Blossoming Bloom. Happy New Year to you as well. And Stephanie is saying, Mokamami, also the issues in the Congo and Guyana because of Venezuela. I don't know anything about that. That'll be interesting for me to take a look at. But
currency manipulation and
got it. Well, let's move to something lighter. Final two things. Oh, I said lighter, but this really isn't light. This is bad, actually. Bad parenting. Now, the boys are being parented badly and the girls are being parented badly. With the boys, Candace Owens shared a video of a rapper who's 9 years old called Lil RT. And the lyrics, the gangster rapper sexual lyrics that this 9-year-old was talking was disgusting. I'm going to focus on the ballet teacher and the girls. Um, and it's just because it's too much to play both. I mean, we've been here for 3 hours already. But I'm gonna show the ballet teacher's comments. I'm gonna say something quite mean. I'll let Mocha Mommy say her piece. Um, but there's a lot of bad parenting happening in the community. A lot. And we have to be honest about that. That's one of the big things on this channel that I want us to be honest about what's happening in our communities. So let's come here.
Your child is in pre-K to elementary school to high school, I'm calling you out. The children today, I have never experienced, and I'm 22. Having to teach and work with you guys as children has been the most traumatic experience of my life. I teach 5-year-olds ballet, 5-year-old girls ballet. I have a class of 10 students. They don't respect any authority. You ask them, can you stand in your designated spot? They're telling you no and shut up. They're throwing things at each other. They're throwing things at other people, other classmates. You say, can everybody sit in their spot? I don't want to. I'm not doing that. You don't get to tell me what to do. You're not my mom. You confront the parent. The parent tries to argue with you and fuss at you because you tried to reprimand and redirect their kid. I told a young little girl, please sit in your spot. You're not my mom. You don't tell me what to do. Okay. When her mom came to pick her up, I said, hey, your daughter's having a hard time following instructions. And 7 times today, I've had to redirect her to just sit in her spot. Well, clearly she didn't want to sit. And mind you, this is a mom. Clearly she didn't want to fucking sit right there. So, I mean, if she's telling you she don't want to do something, why keep asking her to do it? You know she's not going to do it. What world do we live in? Like, what in you guys' brain as a parent says, my kid not following any directions is a great thing. It's not that serious, and y'all don't have a right to tell her what to do. It's sad. It's sad. It's really, really sad. And another thing that's heart-wrenching is horrifying. It is horrifying. Your 5-year-old daughters are asking to listen to Pound Town and Ski Yee. Your 5-year-old daughters are asking, can we hear Pound Town? I'm playing them Princess Tiana ballet music. And they are asking me, can we hear Pound? I don't know what to do.
I feel for her.
I do too.
So Mocha Mommy, I will say if you don't want to be on stage right now when I'm about to make my unpopular opinion, you can let me know and I can remove you from this just in case anybody copies it in the future. Your name won't be on what I'm about to say. But I felt for her. Those were real tears that this young lady has. And my 2 unpopular opinions is this. Number 1, she looks to me like she is an upper middle class young Black woman. And when people ask, why don't you go into the community and help? Why don't Black people go into the community and give back? This video explains why. You're asking, what is Pound Town? It's some probably crazy song by that sexy red girl. And I haven't heard the song, but whatever it is, it's about my booty hole brown or whatever it is. It's trash. It's trash that a 5-year-old shouldn't be listening to. When we were growing up in the 90s, there was Uncle Luke and all of that. But guess what? It had a 17 plus rating on it. You snuck to listen to it, and you darn sure wouldn't tell an adult that that's what you want to hear while you're listening to ballet or you're in class. You wouldn't even want the adults to know that you knew that those songs existed. My first unpopular opinion is that when people ask, why don't upper middle class Black people, why don't the Black people who have made it go back into the community and help? This is the reason why. My second unpopular opinion is, as much as we want to love Black people, when you have children, a lot of Generation Alpha is not being raised properly. You have to vet the parents of these 5-year-olds, these 6-year-olds, these 9-year-olds. Otherwise, your child will be going down the wrong path as well. Now, I'm not saying just vet the Black parents. I'm saying vet all parents. Vet all parents. But most of Generation Alpha is being raised to be soft and to not be able to take discipline. I'm not talking about people being mean to your children and physically brutalizing your kids. That's not what I'm saying at all. But to have this young lady say to a 5-year-old, can you sit in your spot? Can you stand in your spot so that I can show you how to do these positions and dance gracefully? And this is about etiquette and things like that. You send your child to these environments, and your child could be corrupted because the other 9 children are cutting up. Or it may not be 9 children. It may be one child.
Four children that distract the whole class.
Exactly. Exactly. So those are my 2 unpopular opinions about this. Because these 2 things, I'm going to put them up on the screen again. It's not just the boys that are being parented the wrong way. It's the girls too. It's the girls too. Because there was a point when if you had a daughter, or if people saw your daughter, they would treat your daughter a lot more genteel. That's not happening anymore. So Mocha Mommy, I'm just disgusted with this as well, but go ahead. You can say whatever you want to say about this.
I think this is one of the reasons why you see so many teachers also leaving the classroom for the same exact issues and the exposure. And it's not so much, when you kind of look at the demographic of people, a lot of those women are the demographic of people who listen to you. A lot of those women have no children, right? But when you talk about the women who are listening to, I guess, like you said, Sexy Red in this song, they're the ones who have the children. And I find that's very interesting, like how there's really not that juxtaposition of in the community who has the children and who doesn't. And so I don't know, it's all the more reason why we shouldn't be demonizing women who have high standards for who they procreate with, because this is what happens when you don't. So again, as far as this little RT, my only thing is when I first saw this clip, I'm like, how much did Candace Owens scour the internet to find this little boy? That was my first thing, because of just my distrust of her platform, because she will pick very obscure stories and make it seem like it's mainstream. But I don't know. I think working more with Gen Alpha, I know that these things impact them, like other kids' poor behavior, but I know it's not most of Gen Alpha. And I think that's what gives me hope.
Mm-hmm.
That's not most of Gen Alpha. Most of Gen Alpha still has pretty good school attendance, still likes to participate in extracurricular activities, and they know who, I guess, Sexy Red is. But if you ask them to name 3 songs, a lot of them still can't.
Well,
So
that's
I do
good.
know that there are like diligent parents, and many of them are single. So I definitely think that we should talk about the bad parents for sure, but it really does take a village, and be strategic about where you're going to volunteer your time. I'm not saying don't volunteer your time, be strategic about where you do it. And and just being supportive of these types of young women who are willing to go to teach ballet. What can we do to support her, to make sure that she has a good support system, that to make sure she has kids who want to be there and parents that actually support her. I because I don't want her to stop teaching ballet in our community. I don't want that to happen.
I would agree. I don't want her to stop teaching ballet either. I am okay with her firing the parents and firing the kids. Now, this could be a school um, after school activity or something like that. I'd love to know a little bit more about that. Because I do think that she needs to put guardrails up with regards to the young ladies that are in there so that they can get the full benefit of what she's trying to do and teach them in a positive manner. With regards to Candace Owens, I'm completely with you. Candace is messy, right? And yet, this child's parents. So, first of all, I will appreciate with this specific story that Candace said, I don't blame the child, I blame the parents. And she was very straightforward with that. And I appreciated her for that because I know Candace could be on some BS, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, she may have found the obscure story. One of her producers may have found it, but now Candace has over 1 million followers. So people probably send her stuff as well. And they probably found this, this little boy. Um, but in the words of Bethany Frankel from the Real Housewives of New York, if you don't give them the content, they can't run with it. And, you know, they gave her the content with this kid and his rap video and all of that on Instagram. So, you know, um,
Just sad. Our kids
yeah,
deserve better.
they do. Ron is saying, as a former teacher, I will never teach in the Black community. Ron is saying, don't teach in the hood.
Yeah.
And
You would be surprised how many teachers have come from underserved school districts who are now doing private schools, charter
mhm,
schools, and now. So, ladies, if you have any kind of teaching experience, tutoring experience, now's the time, because a lot of these homeschool groups, they're now forcing these women to go back to work. So this could be an economic opportunity for you to do group tutoring, small group tutoring for these moms who don't want to send their kids to school, but they can't afford private school, so they need something. And these small group tutoring sessions, you can find yourself making some pretty decent money. Some of these
yeah.
charter schools and some of the bonuses that they're given for retention. Listen, there's a private school in our area. The woman was like, I would love to do it, but I can't afford it, especially having to raise 2 kids. They're letting the
Mhm,
kids go to private school for free in order for her to teach math there. That's how
mm,
desperate they were. Like, there's so many opportunities out here for you if you do come to teach somewhere else. So I just don't want you to give up. And and then if you still want to maybe help a kid or two, or so this might be a good idea for some of you rich aunties. If you got a nephew or niece, this might be for you. That might be an option for you.
yeah, yeah. I mean, definitely. There is a gentleman that I was working with. He was thinking about starting a tutoring company, and he was doing his research, and he was telling me about this guy who has a super packed calendar, and he teaches physics and chemistry or something like that to high school students in Northern Virginia, Loudoun County. This guy's calendar is packed. Like you can't get on his calendar. He charges like $200 an hour for tutoring, and the parents are lined up to pay him. You know, so
True, yeah.
yeah, if you can help anything from reading all the way up to like advanced stuff, people will pay good money for tutoring, additional help, etc. But that's a certain demographic, you know? So, well, let's move on to the final. Women save the economy. Yay! Women
True.
save the economy in the summer of 2023. So, first of all, the Fed at the very beginning of the year, they wanted to, the inflation was still high. So, they wanted to, they raised interest rates to get people to stop spending so much. Well, when the summer came and the fall came, and these women said, but I got products to put out in the entertainment industry. No, 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 no. People came out and they spent their money. The Little Mermaid made $569 million at the box office. And I know some people say, well, she didn't make $1 billion like the other Disney movies did, but $569 million. Congratulations to Halle Bailey. You know, that's good. That's very good. Barbie, $1.38 billion worldwide. It became the highest grossing film in Warner Brothers history. And this is at a time when the economy was supposed to be slowing. Barbie took over. Beyonce, $579 million. It ended up being the highest grossing tour by a female artist in history and the seventh highest grossing tour overall, right? And Taylor Swift, within 5 months, had a $5 billion impact, according to this Question Pro study. $5 billion impact. People were traveling to different destinations in order to see her tours and all of that. And she ended up becoming Time's Person of the Year because of the economic impact that she had, you know, around the world. So the sisters are doing it. The women are doing it, and women are saving the economy. Mukamami, what are your thoughts with regards to this?
Well, first of all, from the Little Mermaid, Halle Bailey haters, this is what I will say. You know, it didn't make $1 billion, but neither did Fast and Furious 10, neither did Guardians of the Galaxy 3, neither did Indiana Jones, and neither did Mission Impossible. So any movie that was a remake just didn't do well, period, because people got tired of remakes.
Mhm.
And I think that's one of the reasons that gave Barbie an edge, because it was an original film. And I think that's what also gave the writer's strike an edge, because it was an original film.
Mhm.
People are tired of seeing the same things over and over again. As far as the tours for Taylor Swift and Beyonce, you know, they were an experience. And from people I know who spent money, from what I understand, the tickets were not as expensive as they made it seem. Like the first week they came out, they were expensive, but then prices got more reasonable and stabilized a little bit more. And from what I understand, the average person paid between $65 and $300. Now I could be wrong, but I read somewhere the tickets between, now there were definitely $1,000 tickets, $1,200 tickets, but the average, and they made it a really good experience, and not just the concert. It was the overall experience, and the show experience was good. And I'm pretty sure Taylor Swift's economic impact too had to do with the sale of NFL jerseys, right? And talking about Simone Biles' husband, right? You know, the sales of NFL jerseys. So I don't know. I just think women now in the entertainment industry, you know, if you're a creative, you know, it might be time to start packaging and creating that content, because, you know, hold on, how old is Margot Robbie? She's in her 30s now, 30 something. So she's been in the industry for over a decade, and now here's her hit. So if you start now, you know, maybe your hit may be 15, 20 years later. Halle Bailey, she's been a Disney kid since she was, what, 10 or 11? And then finally hits at 21. So like I said, with that delayed gratification, ladies don't, you know, Beyonce, what, performance since she was 12. Now here she's in her 40s, a billionaire. So, hey, you know, start putting that stuff out now, because you never know when your ship will come in.
And just keep trying. So, Dawn Earth, you said it hurt my soul to watch Barbie with my niece, but she enjoyed it and the movie did well. Why did it hurt your soul? What happened? I'm curious. Essence, you're late. Just, watch the replay. Watch the replay. Don't forget to thumbs up the video as well. Um, so Margot Robbie was in Wolf of Wall Street. She has a good roster of
Resume, yeah,
movies.
she does.
I mean, I think this may have been her first, what do you call it? Like first billing, I think is what they call it when you're the primary person
No,
on
she was
the.
in Birds of Prey. She was the top
Oh,
one.
I don't know that movie.
Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, look, you never know. You just keep building your skill set, keep doing, your work, and you never know when things are really going to hit for you. As you've been saying, Mocha Mommy, you never know. So, yeah, but I think not necessarily the gender war, because I don't want to talk about it from a gender war point of view, but I think the tides are turning with regards to the genders and the economic impact that women can have versus men. You know, I mean, men still dominate with regard to the amount of money they generate within the economy, but women are catching up and women are participating in different ways, and we're um, adding to the economy in different ways. Dawn is saying, I just hated every second of the movie with the exception of the ending credits. Okay. I heard it was a feminist movie, so, I'll never watch it. I'll be honest with you. I did go to the theaters to see The Little Mermaid. I did do that. I'm hearing really great things about The Color Purple, so I might go see that. I I don't like depressing movies, and the 1985 movie was really hard to watch. So when I heard The Color Purple was coming out again, like I go to movies to escape, so I wasn't going to go. But everyone's talking about how good it is and how it's not as heavy as 1985 film. So I might end up going to see it.
Yeah. My parents saw the musical on Broadway and said it was uplifting as
Good.
opposed to the book, which was very heavy. Like Color
Hmm.
Purple and Temple of My Familiar were heavy books.
Hmm.
A needed subject, but I don't know. I'm looking forward to seeing Color Purple.
Yeah, yeah. I think I might just go and watch it because it is uplifting. So, anything else with regards to 2023? What are you looking forward to in 2024? Mocha Mommy, what are your final words?
My hopes for 2024 is just to continue developing other streams of income. I think that's so important, even if you do have a good job. And I think it's important to make those strategic alliances, like you said,
Mhm.
and to become more self-sufficient. I think there are some skills that maybe we may need to learn because it's starting to get more expensive to test those skills out. So, ladies, if you really want to save some money, um, start learning to do things yourself. If it's, repair, home or car repair, if it's cooking more for yourself or other things that you may task out, I think one of the biggest money saving strategies are going to be for 2024 is going to be self-sufficiency.
Mhm. I want to know what everyone's favorite story of 2023 was. So I'm going to pin this message here. Um, Tell me your favorite story of 2023. I want to see it. Mocha Mommy, start with you. What was your favorite story of all the ones we went over tonight? What was your favorite story?
I'm really proud of my healthcare workers in the Kaiser Permanente strike.
Uh-huh.
A lot of Texans are ex-Californians, and the fact that they took the picket lines and it wasn't just nursing staff, it was
Mhm.
all of the allied health staff, and they stood united. And those of us who have travel contracts, when they asked for us to go over there, a lot of us held the line and said, we're not going to cross that picket line.
Mm-hmm.
And I was really proud of us when it came to that, because the lab techs, the respiratory therapists, the x-ray technicians, the EVS workers, and the OSHA certified medical disposal people, they all need support too. And they needed that extra money too. And I'm so grateful that all of us held the line for that one.
I love that. I love that. Well, for me, it is the fact that single women are buying homes and are focusing on our wealth, with or without a spouse. I really like that. And I'm working with a lot of single women as well in my mortgage industry business. So I'm really um, seeing where women, single women, not only are buying a house for themselves, but they're also buying multiple properties. They're landlording, they're building wealth through all sorts of methods, and I think that that's just really cool. And then for 2024, for me, rates are expected to drop. The Fed said that they're going to drop rates 3 times next year, so I'm just looking to grow my business, become busier. um, we all know that things are going to be changing drastically over the next 5 to 10 years. So I'm just looking forward to seeing what the future holds. I have been working over the past 2 weeks with artificial intelligence and some of my business automations, and a lot of companies are starting to get into that as well. So um, if you're not paying attention to these things, then it could cost you, you know. But if you are paying attention, you can ultimately do well over the next 5, 10, 20 years with regards to the new technology that's coming out. And now I see people are starting to tell me their favorite stories of 2023. So, Dawn Earth is saying, I missed some of the stream, had to make a run with my mom, but I don't know if you talked about the migrant issue. We did. We did. It's really impacting Chicago, but it's also impacting a nice amount of the Black community. We did talk about it. We didn't go to in depth with regards to it, but we've talked about it a lot on this channel, the migrant issue. And impoverished Black women are not going to beat the migrants. You all know how I feel
That's
about
very
that.
true.
You're not going to beat the
True.
migrants. You're going to have skills, and you're going to have skills that they are not able to get immediately in order to make it. Rana is saying the reproductive rights and the bad parenting were her favorite stories. So, yeah. Kat is saying, this may sound nihilistic, but I like that more women are also choosing to not have kids, or at least until later. This decision is impactful in a multitude of ways for women. This is very true. Um, I I won't necessarily say that I like the fact that women are choosing not to have kids. I I'm going to say I like the fact that not having kids and not getting married is no longer a stain in this economy, or a stain in America. There was a time when we did not have a choice. The people would look at us and call us it's not old maid, but something similar to that. You all know.
Like spinster, or yeah.
Spinster, yeah, things like that. Um, Whereas now, you know, it's acceptable and it's accepted, and I love that for us. I think that if people want to have kids and you're going to be a responsible parent, have at it. If you don't, or if you can't afford it, then we should not be pressured into doing so. Because a lot of women should not be having children. A lot of men should not be having children. So, yeah. And this does have an effect on the entire community. Rana also liked the story of affirmative action. And of course, Rana's been riding with me hard on the affirmative action stories. So she's been doing the work with regards to getting her technical and soft skills in. Dawn Earth is saying her favorite story was about the bad parenting, because we don't understand that these kids are our legacy and some aren't giving them a fighting chance. the ancestors are rolling in their graves. This is very true. Very true. Very true. And Rhonda is saying kids are not legacies. And I've seen people talk about that. They don't feel like kids are legacies or not. I guess I need to do more research on it because I always understood, legacy is like what you're leaving the world. And some people feel like their kids are their legacies, is what they're imparting onto the world. Now, I get the other side of it as well, where people are saying, no, a legacy is if you leave wealth or if you leave a school or something like that that other people can benefit from. But, maybe your legacy is having a child that then builds a school, or having a child that becomes a teacher and affects other children's lives in a positive way. So, I don't know. Your kid could grow up to be a loser. This is very true. Definitely not
It's
your
true.
legacy. It's true. It's true. Yes, I accept that. Jay is saying, I joined late, but I'll watch the replay. I like the discussion about how flashy Republicans are trying to pander to certain black male demos. Yeah, it's true. Keep your eyes open. Election is happening in 2024. They're expecting more strikes, labor strikes in 2024. People are going to be talking about racial tension a lot more in
They sure
2024.
will.
So just keep your eyes open. Keep your eyes open. With the economy, with the interest rates going down, the economy may open up a lot more in 2024. I do believe if it's Biden against Trump, that the gas prices will be going down, because y'all know how I've said it before, that I think the oligarchs do not want Trump. Therefore, they are going to help Biden by lowering the gas prices, lowering the interest rates, doing things so that people can feel like the economy is getting better, all of that stuff. So take advantage of it while you can. And yeah, it's going to be an interesting year.
Absolutely.
Well, Mokomami, where can we find you online, on YouTube, etc.?
Yes, I have my own YouTube channel, and I'll make sure I'll leave a link when the video posts in the comments.
Okay.
But thanks so much for supporting my channel, and thanks so much for inviting me for this discussion.
Absolutely. I thank you so much for hanging out with me for 3.5 hours. You know that this is always our longest discussion, but we have always a great time, hanging out here. So thank you, ladies, for being here today. I will be on actually on New Year's Eve to talk about having an indistractable New Year. Other than that, I hope you have a wonderful weekend, and I'll see you on Monday, midday Monday. Take care. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thank you.